of oceans economy, food security, technical vocational skills. So, which is a diversification of the curriculum that currently we are engaged on.
Gauteng authorities have urged residents to remain vigilant following the South African Weather Services issuing a warning for severe thunderstorms in most parts of the province. The extreme weather conditions could result in localized flooding, especially in low-lying areas. Very cold temperatures, hail and strong winds are expected to continue until tonight. City of Tshwane spokesperson Lindsay Mguni.
Maximum temperatures are also expected to be low due to the cut-off low-pressure system's core moving over Gauteng. The severe thunderstorms are expected to persist from about 12 o'clock in the middle of the night until about 10 o'clock at night on Thursday, 7 August 2025, with 60% chances of rain occurring in Tshwane.
Recapping the top story, it's not yet clear whether South Africa and the US have reached a deal on tariffs. This follows US President Donald Trump enforcing a 30% tariff on imported South African products with effect from today if a deal is not reached. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, cricket. We're building up to the Proteas. They're eyeing the T20 opener. That's against Australia. We're building up to that, as well as looking forward to the PSL kicking off. Gavin Hunt reflecting on teaming up with veteran Ernst Middendorp. All the details just before 6:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. We take you to Cape Town for a large protest on the R300. The highway is closed between the AZ Berman and Stock Road on-ramp and the M7 Jake Shervale Drive. It's a full closure of that R300, and it is a busy route. There's extra congestion, obviously, around the Mitchells Plain area as motorists deal with this. The R300 is already queuing, coming off the N2 down to Stock Road, where you realise it's closed and you have to turn into Mitchells Plain. AZ Berman coming out of Mitchells Plain up to the R300, very heavy, where you're then faced with an exit out towards the N2 only. You can't turn to the towards the M7. And Highlands Drive, the alternative route to hook into the M7 out of Mitchells Plain, there's a heavy backlog there as well. So full closure of the R300 and very disruptive around the Mitchells Plain area. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through. Just keep an eye on the weather conditions around Gauteng. There is some forecast of rain that's set to continue. So just make sure you're aware of that on your trip around. Know when it's raining, know how heavy it is. The N3 between Joburg and Van Rieman's is open, but there's a lot of drizzle and rain along that section of roadway, so drive carefully as well, please. Durban side looking okay if you're on your way from the south coast up for those early morning flight connections. King Shaka, the N2 up through Spaghetti Junction, Umgeda Road, up through Gateway, looking okay at this hour. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
7 minutes after 6, and today is Thursday, the 7th of August, 2025. Even as you slept, key news events here at home, on our continent and around the world have continued to shape, reshape, carve and contour the world that you're waking up to today. So that's why we are here then to fully brief you and equip you with all the updates and insights you need as you start your day. Welcome to it, the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107. Among some of what we will tell you over the next 3 hours, we'll ask the question and tease out this question around: are we in the age of anything goes as far as what passes as an exercise of freedom of expression? The advent of new digital and social media platforms has had the effect of making it easy for people to exercise their right to freedom of expression, and that's a good thing, to receive and impart information and ideas without hindrance. In the process, there's been significant democratization of media access, the commendable opening up of media platforms such as broadcasting, call it podcasting now, that were once almost the exclusive preserve of big and medium media corporations and professional broadcasters, and which often left certain voices out of the conversation. But the other sharp side of that double-edged sword is the concern that is growing about the ease with which players in these new and digital platforms can wantonly trample on other people's rights. The amplification of defamatory, prejudicial, ignorant, and sometimes truly vile commentary has become a key feature of these platforms. So, in the latest example that we can cite, the Patriotic Alliance leader, Gayton McKenzie, calling for urgent legal action against the hosts of the Open Chats podcast after a controversial episode surfaced containing deeply offensive and racist remarks about the colored community in this country. Media personality Minnie Dlamine's Equality Court lawsuit is another example. The lawsuit against podcasters Mac G and Sol Penduka over sexist comments that they made about her. So it seems then it is worth revisiting the bounds of freedom of expression and whether or not they are being redrawn in the age of pervasive social and digital media. So at the top of 7, we'll bring up that conversation with William Bird, who is the Director of Media Monitoring Africa. We'll just tease it out again. Where are the boundaries now that we are here in this space, which has commendable features of the democratization of media access and amplification of voices that previously would not have enjoyed, that prominence in the traditional spaces such as broadcasting. But at the same time, this growing concern about the violation of people's rights and whether or not we should be having a more amplified conversation about regulation. Does regulation amount to restriction in terms of these new digital media spaces? So William Bird will unpack all of that for us at the top of 7 a.m. And then we'll tell you this story in this hour, actually at about 10 to 7. The sudden and tragic death of a 19-year-old student at the Stellenbosch University, Chris Schaefer, from meningococcal meningitis. That has triggered a wave of concern across the campus community and prompted urgent health warnings and precautionary measures. So the university, in collaboration with the Western Cape Department of Health, launching contact tracing and beginning to administer preventative antibiotics to those who were in close contact with Schaefer. As the university community reels from the loss, health officials are raising awareness once again about this rare but deadly infection and talking about its symptoms and how it spreads and how to protect yourself. So we'll speak to Dr. Leslie van Roy, who is the acting senior director for student affairs at Stellenbosch University, just bringing up that issue and sort of talking about how the university community is coping with what is it meningococcal meningitis. So we'll just bring it under the spotlight and talk a bit more about it. File this under unsolved. The mystery of the mayoral chain. The Gauteng police have confirmed that the case of the missing Sedibeng municipality mayoral chain, which is valued at 465,000 rand, has officially been closed. So that investigation is done and dusted. The chain has not been located and no one has been arrested. No one is being prosecuted. Despite nearly a year of investigation, in fact, a year or more of investigation, the ceremonial chain has not been recovered. No arrests have been made and the National Prosecuting Authority has declined to prosecute. So the lack of resolution then sparking criticism and concerns about accountability and transparency. And in a way, is it symbolic? Is it, symbolic of the state of play in that municipality? The very fact that the mayoral chain could go missing. What does it tell us about where things are in terms of governance in that municipality, but also the inability of the SAPS and other authorities to trace it? I don't know. I'm just wondering, to what extent do you view this as quite telling? Right? It's nothing. It's a ceremonial chain. Nothing turns on it in terms of delivery of services. But I'm wondering the fact that it could, 1, be stolen, 2, the police just failed to eventually resolve the case and close it without resolution after more than a year of investigation. Pinguku, where are we at this moment? So we'll have a conversation with King Saul Chabalala of the DA, who's been tracking that situation, and we'll talk to King Saul at 8:45 this morning. And of course, we have all your essential and regular updates throughout the morning, and they are locked and loaded. And Musa has your hourly and half-hourly news updates. Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan with your sports update, and Melissa Puta is on standby with the morning brief in brief. Dauleng Lechela with your business, economics and market updates, and of course Raz Sipomantula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7. Be a part of the conversation. Do call me throughout the 3 hours. Call me on 086 000 2032 or send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. Let's get the Thursday edition of the morning brief underway.
After a 2-0 loss against Morocco in the Chan opener, the Angolans are digging deep for their first victory. However, the hosts, Harambee Stars, are chasing their second consecutive win in their own backyard. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Be part of the action. Angola versus Kenya. This Thursday, 7 August at 6 p.m. Live everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, let's kick off with the morning brief in brief with Melissa Puta. Melissa, good morning. So quite a great deal of pressure in as far as governance is concerned in the city of Joburg, falling on the mayor, Dada Morero, and he's going to make some changes to his leadership team.
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero has done some restructuring in his mayoral committee. Loyiso Masuku will become the new MMC for Finance, replacing Margaret Arnold, who was recently elected Speaker of Council. Masuku's previous role as MMC for Group Corporate and Shared Services will go to Sithembiso Zungu. Kazamula Chauke will take over as Chief Whip, with Joseph Mufukeng as Deputy Chief Whip. Other portfolio changes are still uncertain, though, and the PA leader, Gayton McKenzie, has recommended Liam Jacobs as MMC for Transport, but we're still waiting to see how that will go.
Yeah. And then coming out of the courts, we've been watching the bail application and the appearance of this man known as Katiso KT Molefe. You're saying that he's been described as a dangerous man.
Yes, so Katiso KT Molefe was in court yesterday, and as we know, he's a 61-year-old Sandton businessman, and he has been described by the state as a dangerous criminal with no regard for human life. He is accused of the murders of DJ Somebody and DJ Vintos, along with their bodyguards. Molefe appeared in the Alexandra Magistrate Court, where the state opposed his bail, citing him as a flight risk involved in the illicit drug trade and likely to intimidate witnesses or destroy evidence during his time on bail. He faces multiple counts of conspiracy to commit murder and murder. His bail hearing has been postponed to the 14th of August. So we will see how this case goes as well.
And lastly, Melissa, I see that the Department of International Relations and Cooperation is not taking this matter of former President Jacob Zuma visiting Morocco and using the South African flag and the way that he was received by Morocco itself. They're not taking that lying down. They're taking it up through the official channels.
Yes, so DIRCO has condemned former President Jacob Zuma and the Umkhonto weSizwe Party for using the South African flag during a recent visit to Morocco. Zuma met with Moroccan Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita in July, expressing support for Morocco's occupation of Western Sahara, contradicting South Africa's official position on this matter. DIRCO strongly objected to the use of national symbols in a meeting involving a non-state actor, saying it falsely implied state endorsement. The government emphasized the importance of respecting the diplomatic protocol and preserving bilateral relations. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out as well.
Yeah, and Morocco's response as well will be interesting, because DIRCO says they've officially communicated their unhappiness with the Moroccans. Thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with today's edition of The Morning Brief in Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
On the weather front, just one warning that has come through from the South African Weather Service. It is a yellow level 3 warning, and it says severe thunderstorms resulting in traveling disruptions, localized flooding, large amounts of small hail and wind damage in parts of Limpopo, most of Mpumalanga Highveld, and central and northern Gauteng. So do take care if you are in those areas. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 15. Johannesburg, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 6 to 15. Mbombela, cloudy with afternoon showers and rain, 12 to 19. Polokwane, cloudy with scattered showers and rain, but thunder showers in the afternoon, 10 to 18. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 2 to 17. Bloemfontein, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 5 to 16. Kimberley, partly cloudy, 3 to 16. Uppington, partly cloudy, 1 to 18. Cape Town, partly cloudy, 9 to 16. George, fine, becoming partly cloudy from the afternoon with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 16. Gqeberha, partly cloudy, 10 to 19. East London, cloudy, becoming partly cloudy, 11 to 19. Durban will be cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 16 to 19. Richards Bay, cloudy with scattered showers and rain, 17 to 20. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise cloudy with isolated showers and rain with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 16.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All. We honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
21 minutes after 6. Let's give you this story. No more than 24 hours before a key deadline set by Donald Trump demanding a ceasefire in Ukraine expires on Friday, the U.S. president has hailed what he calls, quote-unquote, great progress in talks between his envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump has described the meeting in Moscow as having been, quote-unquote, highly productive. The meeting came as Russian President Vladimir Putin showed no inkling of an intention to comply with Trump's demand. Despite growing pressure from Trump, including threats of sweeping sanctions and tariffs, sources close to the Kremlin say Putin remains committed to military goals in Ukraine and is skeptical of the likely effectiveness of additional U.S. economic penalties. So let's speak to Professor Abel Esterhazy, who is a member of the Department of Strategic Studies at the University of Stellenbosch. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. The report back from both sides describes the meeting between Witkoff and Putin as having been productive, constructive, and we're told that, quote-unquote, signals were exchanged about Ukraine. What do we believe to have been the purpose of this meeting amid what appears to be a ramping up by Trump of his multi-pronged pressure strategy on Russia?
Yeah, good morning. What we are witnessing now is, I think, Putin realizing that Trump is actually going to open the taps in terms of support for Ukraine, and it is Putin now coming to the table to find a pathway. And I don't think Putin is really interested in peace here. I think he is more worried about the kind of equipment and kind of cruise missiles specifically that the Americans can provide to Ukraine. So I think this is not a strategic solution. I think it is Putin playing tactics here to delay the provision of weaponry by the Americans to to Ukraine. This is what I am reading in what I'm seeing at the moment.
That provision of weapons and weaponry to Ukraine, which had been paused for a moment but has now resumed with the undertaking that European partners would pay for them, the U.S. shipping them those weapons to Ukraine. That has been coupled by a threat of a further squeeze on the Russian economy. Tell me about that and the likely impact of that, because Trump is now putting pressure on those countries that buy Russian oil. How significant is that, given the dependence of the Russian economy on oil and gas exports?
No, I think the importance here is the idea of secondary sanctions, where the Americans are now threatening to sanction those countries that is doing business with Russia. And I think countries like India and China and even South Africa, will be under pressure to stop that because of that pressure from the Americans. So I think here's two issues that's at play here. The one, I don't think the sanctions perhaps is that critical issue. I think it is more about the possibility and the kind of weapons that the U.S. is due to deliver. But let's say there's a two-pronged process here that may unfold, and that Trump have been threatening and been talking about for quite some time. And Putin have been playing around and not coming to the table in terms of bending to the rules and to the demands of Trump. And now Trump is actually serious. So I think this is but Putin just trying to play Trump here. To be quite honest, I don't think we are going to see a strategic breakthrough here. Very honest. I think this is lower end tactics we're seeing here. It is Putin playing Trump. In spite of the threat of secondary sanctions and in spite of the threat of weapon supply to Ukraine, I don't read in the glass ball anything more than Putin busy with buying time here.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Professor Abel Esterhazy, who is a member of the Department of Strategic Studies in the Faculty of Military Science, and that is at Stellenbosch University.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you. Ryan Rickleton, tell me about him and the preparations for the T20I, that's the opening against the Aussies.
Oh, yeah, Thulas. Ryan Rickleton is not just in Australia for sightseeing. He is chasing Protea spotlight, and they've got an opening T20 match this Sunday against Australia, the so-called formidable foes, and he knows this is a golden opportunity. With opener Reza Hendricks out of the squad, Rickleton is set to partner with the rising star Luandre Pretorius at the top order. Now, after being rested during the Zimbabwe tour, Rickleton says it's his first time in Australia.
I've never been here. It's my first time to Australia actually as well. So my first time playing cricket here too. I always knew it was up north. I had a friend that lived up here for a bit. So yeah, different part of the world, I guess. Quite a unique little place. Lots of different things to do. Small town kind of feel, but yeah, they're quite a busy place as well. So yeah, looking forward to obviously experiencing cricket in Australia. I would have loved to play at obviously the main stadiums throughout Australia.
Rickleton also sees it as a crucial audition for the T20 World Cup.
Do you think they're saying, good on you, mate?
Good on you, mate.
Good on you, mate.
Ooh,
terrible. That's a terrible Australian accent.
Taking me down under with you. Right, let's go to the Durban city that we love here in Mzansi. Well, coach Gavin Hunt. He's saying that he's remaining calm under the gaze of Ernst Middendorf, brushing off any notion of pressure under the new technical director. Hunt was simultaneously appointed alongside the German mentor in different roles following Durban City's promotion back to the Betway Premiership.
Yeah, we've been fine, he's got a lot of experience and he doesn't want the Saturday and whatever, so he's been working behind the scenes, helping the disky, trying to get things sorted out, trying to get players in, trying to help, those type of things, so it's all it's fine.
You don't feel him hanging over your shoulder?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm not a kid, so, no.
Let's go back now to some more news, and this time it's former Bayern Munich forward Thomas Müller. He is joining the Vancouver Whitecaps in arguably the biggest signing in club history. Müller, who won the World Cup with Germany in 2014, will join the Whitecaps for the remainder of the season in an open roster spot. Terms of the deal were not released. It includes a designated player option for 2026. And finally, golf. Topping the PGA Tour FedEx Cup rankings, world number one, Scottie Scheffler, heads into the postseason as heavy favourite, starting with the FedEx St. Jude Championship in Memphis.
Yeah, course looking good. It's in really good shape. The greens, it's amazing that they shut this place down in January and they're able to have it looking the way it does right now. It's in amazing shape. The greens are really starting to firm up. Scores should be a little higher this week. The rough is healthy. There's going to be a big premium on getting the ball in play, and should be a really good test this week.
We'll swing back. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good on you, mate.
I love it.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the US tariffs on South African imported goods are about to kick in. However, it's not yet clear whether South Africa and the US have reached a deal on the tariffs. 4 people accused of child abuse and attempted murder are expected back in the Johannesburg Regional Court today. This after a video which has gone viral on social media showed a 4-year-old boy being instructed to light and smoke an unknown substance. And Gauteng authorities have urged residents to remain vigilant after the South African Weather Service issued a warning for severe thunderstorms in most parts of the province. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Traffic story down in Cape Town, full closure of the R300. It's a really busy highway, high volumes, and it's all getting jammed through Mitchell's Plain as motorists seek alternative routes. The highway, the R300 closed between AZ Berman Stock Road Junction and the M7 Jakes Curville Drive. Quite a crowd setting quite a fire this morning across that road. Picks up on Twitter at Traffic SA. You can have a look at the extent of that. It's likely to be closed for some time this morning. A lot of pressure. R300 coming off the M2 down to AZ Berman's all queued up as you realise you have to divert there. AZ Berman Highlands Drive, Veltfreden Drive that takes off from Morgansteer up through the Philippines. A lot of traffic congestion, as you can imagine. Just staying in Cape Town, the M2 under pressure today between Khayelitsha and Jan Smuts Drive. Before you're out of that, crash coming out of Benoni on your way to Boksburg and Joburg. It's just after Tom Jones, between Tom Jones and Atlas. Multiple lanes closed, traffic pushing back heavily towards Pitfontein already. And a crash going into Pinetown, top of Fields Hill. The M13 arriving into Kloof from the golf course side, all heavily backed up. And the first of today's breakdowns at Key Ridge, holding traffic from Shongweni as you go slowly up onto Key Ridge direction PMB. Peter Maritzburg, Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you, Ndauling. So for the first update, let's start with this story. There's a sense in which what Trump has been doing, the strategy all along, is starting to pixelate in old computer speak, pixelating into focus in terms of what it's yielding. I imagine that Apple planning to invest $100 billion in the U.S. has something to do with the pressure strategy of the U.S. president in the last few months.
You're absolutely right, Thulas. Apple has been in focus considering that most of its iPhones are either produced in China or in India, and they've faced a lot of pushback from Trump. So this a welcome move, the group doubling down on its investments in the US, announcing $100 billion investment as part of its American manufacturing program, which aims to boost US manufacturing and create jobs. Now, the commitment is on top of another investment commitment that it announced in February. The company plans to work with 10 US-based companies to produce critical components for Apple products. The investment will support various initiatives such as producing glass for iPhones and Apple Watches and manufacturing lasers for facial recognition systems. This investment is expected to create over 20,000 new jobs in the US, focused on research and development, silicon engineering, software development, and AI and machine learning. Now, Apple's goal is to have an end-to-end supply chain where every part of the chip-making process takes place on American soil. The investment was announced during a meeting between Apple CEO Tim Cook and President Trump at the White House. Trump praised Apple's commitment to bringing jobs and production back to America. In return for its investment, Apple received a key exemption from Trump's proposed 100% tariffs on imported semiconductors and chips.
Yeah, the president and the tech billionaires. Also pixelating into focus is just how stiff the competition landscape will be in as far as the obesity drug market is concerned.
Yes.
And Novo Nordisk is grappling with that and saying a bit about that.
Well, the European company is losing market share, this as it faces stiff competition from copycat versions of its obesity drug Wegovy, particularly in the US, where compounding pharmacies are selling similar drugs at lower prices. Now, this has prompted Novo to lower its full-year sales and profit outlook. The company's outgoing CEO, Lars Jorgensen, noted that the copycat market is roughly the same size as Novo Nordisk's business. Despite these challenges, Novo Nordisk is taking steps to combat the competition, including lawsuits against compounding pharmacies, and it's expanding its US direct-to-consumer platform, Novo Care. The company is also focusing on cost efficiency under the leadership of its new CEO, Mazia Dasta. Zooming in on the numbers, profits for the second quarter were flat, while sales jumped 13%, with sales for Wegovy surging 67%. Markets, however, shrugging off the sales growth, focusing on that lower guidance, which resulted in its shares taking a knock, down 5.3% in yesterday's session.
So how did we close yesterday, and what tone has been set in those markets that have opened?
So reflecting on markets performance, US stocks closing in positive territory, with traders cheering the latest earnings, shrugging off trade jitters. The Nasdaq leading the gains, up 1.2%. Back at home, the JSE continuing its winning streak, with the All Share gaining close to 0.5% in yesterday's session. The All Share also back above the 100,000 point mark, fueled by gains from the Resources 10 complex. Meanwhile, in the currency scene, the rand steady as those tariff concerns linger. It's at 17.74 to the greenback. Over in the commodity scene, a bit of a pullback in the oil price on the back of brewing tensions between Russia and the US. It's sitting at $66 per barrel. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks mostly in the green, despite those tariff concerns lingering.
All right, Ndauling, thank you for that. That's the morning briefs. Ndauling Lechela. She'll be back with your second update just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, we turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning to you. We start in Accra, in Ghana, and some tragic news coming through. Tell me about this helicopter crash.
Thulas, indeed, this is a national tragedy in the land of Kwame Nkrumah. That yesterday we saw that there was a crash, an army helicopter crash. Thulas, taking off from the capital city, going to the northwest into the interior of the Ashanti region. That is a gold mining area, Thulas. It went off the radar, and that wreckage was later found in the Andasi area. Here we're talking of high-level government officials, ministers, Thulas, a national security advisor, a minister of Defense, Minister of Environment, a Vice Chairperson of the National Democratic Congress, the ruling party in Ghana. This was the Z9 helicopter that has been used to transport and do medical evacuation. This is a worst tragedy compared to what happened in 2014 and 2012. The AU chairperson have already sent a message of condolences to the government of Ghana, as well as President John Dramani Mahama. Thulas, if you remember this thing, it will remind you of the Zambian soccer team, if you remember of the crash that happened. But this one of Ghana, losing executives, defense minister, national security advisor, this is very sad to us.
Yeah, it really is tragic. And condolences to the people of the land of Kwame Nkrumah, as you say. Sipho, let's talk about Sudan. They have a particular problem, right? These days, it's almost unavoidable that your path, if you are flying anywhere in the world, you are likely going to via the Gulf states. They now have a problem. The United Arab Emirates grounding their planes.
Absolutely, but to us, what's the trigger? We know that the Sudanese army cut diplomatic ties with the United Arab Emirates around their aiding and supporting the paramilitary, the rapid support forces. That was around May to us. And now what they have done now, they've bought any airline from Sudan to can land in Abu Dhabi airport, and that's what has caused tension. Now the government of Sudan is trying to do what you call the reprogramming of the reservation of passengers arriving in and moving out of the Gulf country. And that's why you see, Thulas, once you have a political crisis, it will definitely affect your airline. It will affect the passengers who have to travel between those Gulf states.
And then lastly, tell me about the improving relations between Ethiopia and Somalia.
Thulas, it's quite interesting what we see from Addis Ababa and Mogadishu. Others are saying it's a new page of the ties between the two countries. Yesterday, Suleiman Dadefo was presented with his credentials to the Somalian president as a sign of continuing this relationship. You'll recall that there was a conflict between Ethiopia and Somalia around the recognition of Somaliland, and that's what caused the tension. And there was an Ankara declaration. That's where there was that peace process in 2024. Now we see this new page between Addis Ababa and Mogadishu.
Yeah, no, we don't have time, Sipho, but I could tell you a story about how we came to learn and know in detail about those tensions between those countries in mid-air some years ago, traveling with the gift of the givers, trying to get to Somalia, and now having airspace clearance issues over Ethiopia. But that's a story for another day. In your historical archives, take me to the 7th of August, 1947.
Thulas, he's a vivid listener of the show. He's a former Minister of Science and Technology, former Deputy Minister of Education, former President of AZAPO, was born in Zanini on this day, Tate Musibudi Mangena. This is a learned person, Thulas. When I look at his profile, completed his BSc honors through UNISA while he was in the Robben Island. Later got his cum laude MC Thulas in applied mathematics while in exile in Gaborone. Hence, the University of the Land, UNISA, in 2013 awarded him an honorary doctorate in philosophy. He has written 7 books. I won't go into them, Thulas, but I like this quote when he said, "Science taught me to question everything, to recognize that accepted reality might be wrong." One of his books that I think is the latest, it was The Apartheid Fault Lines and Other Short Essays. The book of 2015, that's the one that I might say the listeners must check, but there are 7 books of Ntate Musibudi Mangena. Like I said, a vivid listener of SAFM. Asante sana Thulas, that's what's leading the conversation. SAFM observing the Women's Month and Tate Mangena's birthday.
Sipho, thank you for that. And I saw him recently. He looks as fit as a fiddle. In fact, I jokingly said to him, "You don't look a day over 50." Former Deputy Minister, former Minister Musibudi Mangena there. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update for today.
What is Overtrail? Is it off the beaten path, over the edge of comfort, or the thrill of the road less taken? It's over every bridge, every obstacle, every trail, and over to that view that takes your breath away. Overtrail means going further, exploring deeper, surrounded by the comfort and sophistication of a luxury SUV. It's this spirit that inspired the Overtrail project. Experience Overtrail in the LX and GX range. Lexus. Experience amazing.
After a 2-0 loss against Morocco in the Chan opener, the Angoldans are digging deep for their first victory. However, the hosts, Harambee Stars, are chasing their second consecutive win in their own backyard. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Be part of the action. Angola versus Kenya. This Thursday, 7 August at 6 p.m. Live everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
16 minutes to 7 on this Thursday. The sudden and tragic death of 19-year-old Stellenbosch University student Chris Schaefer from meningococcal meningitis has triggered a wave of concern across the campus community and prompted urgent health warnings and precautionary measures. The university, in collaboration with the Western Cape Department of Health, have launched contact tracing and begun administering preventative antibiotics to those who were in close contact with Schaefer. Let's speak to Dr. Leslie van Roy, who is the Acting Senior Director for Student Affairs at Stellenbosch University. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. I can only imagine what a difficult time this must be for the university community. Tell me what measures are being put in place to, one, grapple with the situation and the death of this student, but also to try and contain, and ameliorate any worries about the spread of meningitis.
Yes, good morning to Thulasizwe, and also good morning to your listeners. Absolutely correct. We were really saddened and shocked to discover Chris Schaefer's body on Saturday late afternoon, early evening. And as you can imagine, we had to engage with his family, close friends, and a lot of individuals in the residence that he stayed that was quite shocked. And that all played out on Saturday evening and Sunday morning. And then on Monday late afternoon, we were informed by the medical authorities, provincial authorities, that Chris in all likelihood at that stage passed of a particular strain of meningitis, and that was confirmed later that evening. And then to Thulasizwe, of course, we had to immediately activate emergency protocols given the nature of the illness, and that pushed us to almost immediately start to track and trace. Now, that was late Monday afternoon, very early evening.
Yeah.
And then we identified a couple of clusters of individuals that would have been in close contact with the late Chris Schaefer. Students in his residence, a particular section that he stayed in, a cappella group that he formed a part of, and then, of course, his classmates. He studied theology. He was very actively involved in, for example, music, also in a local congregation. And those four clusters, along with the staff that supported the family to enter the room, also from subs, etc., was regarded as close contacts. And from Monday evening, in particular then on Tuesday morning, our campus health services, and as you said, in partnership with the provincial health authorities, local Stellenbosch Hospital, we could start to administer prophylaxis, provide support, share advice, communicate with the broader campus community, etc. And as is indicated by the provincial health authorities, the first 24 hours is crucial, and for us was extremely crucial.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy that we could support and administer over that period.
So, Doc, it's a rare bacterial infection, this
Yes.
type of meningitis. Any idea of the source and how the student contacted it?
Yeah, so that's the difficult part. The experts, both at the university and in the health sector, indicates that it's almost impossible to determine that. In particular, this strain, very often it goes undetected. In extremely rare cases, it leads to death, but it's almost impossible for individuals to determine what the source could have been. What we do know is that in our province, the Western Cape province, there are particular strains. Very often go undetected and very often also do not even cause illness. And in extremely rare cases, as is the case with the Lactis scephus, it sadly impacted him heavily and in the end also caused his death.
And what's emerging from the contact tracing? I heard you were explaining the clusters of individuals around whom you were focusing. But right at the moment, what are you able to say? Anything to worry about?
Nothing to worry about at this stage, completely isolated. A number of, as I indicated, staff and students received the prophylaxis. That has a 24-hour turnaround effect. Also, to make sure that as an absolutely precautionary measure, students and staff in close contact do not fall ill. There were a couple of tests done, all came back negative. It is flu and cold season, so there is coughing and sneezing, and I think that made a lot of people very worried. But no other identified case on campus. In fact, I just read an email just before you phoned to confirm that a monster done on another student, the close contact, also came back negative. So as things stand, isolated, and I'm really, really thankful that with the local authorities, we could act immediately.
And what's been the impact on the academic program of what is clearly a traumatic event? I mean, I was reading the account of one, parent who has a child who's a student at the university, and this child was describing that, this person actually lived in a residence not so far from me. So what I picked up from there is that it was that shocking as an incident on campus. So what's been the impact? Has there been any impact on the academic program and life in general on campus?
Yeah. So on Tuesday, I think a lot of students were either very worried or concerned or shocked, in particular the individuals that knew Chris. Now, we know enough of meningitis to know what is possible, what is transmittable, and what is not. And we try to communicate that as openly and as quickly as possible. Our campus health services met with individual groups of students who either went to their offices, came to the residence, went to the faculty to engage with all concerned parties. And I understand a number of students also went to pharmacies and private hospitals, for example, all to get information or to receive prophylaxis, depending on the decision made at the counter or at the hospital. But classes continued. A number of students, small number of students isolated, especially those in close contact or those that were sneezing and coughing. In the meantime, they've also been cleared. And since yesterday, Wednesday, late morning, early afternoon, our sense is that we know enough. The tests that were done on Monday, Tuesday came back negative. Those in isolation started to go outside, albeit then that some preferred to walk around with masks, similar to what we saw in 2020 and 2021. But I'm very happy to say that it remains a very sad and tragic isolated case, but isolated nonetheless.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Dr. Leslie van Roy, who is the Acting Senior Director for Student Affairs at Stellenbosch University.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy Ekurhuleni side of Joburg this morning. If you're Joburg bound on the N12, there's been quite a big crash scene just after Tom Jones. So between Tom Jones and Atlas Road, traffic is back through Snake Road, back to Pittsfontein, and working back to Daveyton. It's a very, very heavy backlog. If you know those side roads, it'll be a good morning to get off that N12 and to get onto those alternative routes. Pick of that traffic congestion up online on Twitter at TrafficSA. You can have a look at how extreme that backlog is. There is a crash coming out of Pretoria this morning. morning on the M1 South between the R21 and Buata Avenue. Also, if you're coming from the Queenswood side, Gordon Road going south, a crash at Stads at Bopupi, and that's quite a heavy backlog. Durban, if you're on the M13, arriving into Kloof from Hillcrest, you'll hit a queue around Maytime Gillett's area. That's a crash right at the top of Fields Hill on the way to Pinetown, so that's why it's all slow. The N2 looks like a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction. Queue pushing back towards Genna Road already, and the N3 slowly up onto Key Ridge around the first of today's breakdowns. The big story coming out of Cape Town is the full closure of the R300. This is a really high volume highway this time of morning because of protesting. The highway closed between Jakes Curville Drive and the AZ Berman Stock Road junction, and as you can imagine, there is a lot of additional congestion in that already congested Mitchell's Plain area as motorists scramble for alternative routes. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The boardroom heat is on and the pressure is rising. The Insurance Apprentice, hosted by the one and only Babi Moloi, is delivering drama, tough decisions, and big personalities every week. Expect bold moves, emotional twists, and contestants you'll either root for or roast. And yes, you'll be surprised what you learn about insurance along the way. Open up to the Insurance Apprentice, Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
It is time to experience spectacular football talent from 19 African nations. East Africa is on full vibration. From Tanzania, Kenya to Uganda, the pitch personnel are hungry for continental glory. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Witness Chan 2024 on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 from 2 to 30 August 2025. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
We love rating things, our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dischem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dischem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dischem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So next time you have an encounter with police officers who are in the cause and scope of carrying out their duties, such as stopping you at a roadblock, you may, if you wish, whip out your camera and record the entire interaction on video. That's thanks to recent clarification of the law regarding this area, which has come from a recent judgment out of the High Court in Johannesburg. The court case was triggered by the 2019 arrest of an attorney who was detained after filming a police roadblock outside his home. He had calmly asked officers to relocate the roadblock slightly away from his house and to a nearby open area, but was met with aggression and ultimately unlawful arrest after attempting to document the incident on his phone. So let's get the perspective of Chad Thomas, who is a crime expert as well as director of IRS investigations. Good morning to you, Chad, and thank you for your time. So it's easier said than done, is it not? This whole idea that I can whip out my phone and record the entire interaction with a police officer on camera. Oftentimes, I believe, and you'll set me straight if I'm wrong, oftentimes that's met with aggression and threats of arrest.
Very good morning to you and to the listeners. Yes, it would be difficult, although as you use the term clarification, this has now at least documented, and we have case law for something we've always known is possible. We call it single party consent. If you party to an interaction or if you party to a conversation, you can record that without necessarily the consent of the other party. We have limitations on that. You don't want to film something and put it on social media, even if you're there, of, say, for example, a murder suspect or a rape suspect being arrested, because you may interfere with a later identity parade that may need to be done. However, you can film other things that are transpiring, and in fact, that could become evidence for the police at a later stage. You must also understand that our departments of police also want to start rolling out body cams. So it means that if the police are going to be able to film their interactions with members of the public, there's no reason why there shouldn't be a counter filming of what's transpiring. But like you said, until the police become aware of this, until they're trained in this, until their body cams are rolled out and they understand that it's in their best interest as well as the best interest of the public, especially in terms of civil claims, it's the best possible thing that could have happened.
So often you hear a police officer countering in these videos that sometimes are shared when there's been an incident that has played itself out and is now on social media. You will sometimes hear a police officer saying, well, I've not consented to being recorded. I have a right to privacy. Do those arguments hold water given that they're performing a public function, exercising a public power?
Very interesting dynamic. Section 14 of the Constitution enshrines one's right to privacy. Section 14D, or privacy from a digital perspective. But Section 36 of the Constitution creates a limitation of those rights. So that's why we have other acts such as POPI, other acts such as PAIA. But an interesting dynamic is filming in a public place has never been an issue. You now have the city of Johannesburg wanting cameras that are placed for security reasons on different premises to now register with the council if those cameras point towards a public place. Whether it's just to garner more income for the council, whether they've got a different interpretation of the law is still yet to be learned. But this bylaw is very interesting because it talks about cameras facing into public areas. And like you pointed out, if you're in the public area, your right to privacy is limited.
All right, I've got to thank you for those insights. Let's see how quickly this can filter down and be communicated, this judgment and its implications for how police officers conduct themselves when they encounter civilians who believe that they should protect themselves by documenting the whole interaction on camera. That's Ched Thomas, crime expert and director of IRS investigations. And Musa is on standby with your latest news at 7 a.m.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, US tariffs on South African imported goods looming and 4 suspects to appear in court over child's drug smoking video. Good morning. The US tariffs on South African imported goods will take effect in less than 24 hours. However, it's not clear whether South Africa and the US have reached a deal. This follows the US President Donald Trump imposing a 30% tariff. South Africa faces the highest rate in sub-Saharan Africa. Other African nations such as Nigeria, Ghana, Lesotho and Zimbabwe have been hit with a 15% tariff each. Earlier this week, the Trade, Industry and Competition Minister, Pak Stahu, said negotiations were continuing, but with the looming deadline, an outcome is yet to be communicated.
We continue to engage with the U.S. government, and it is our intention that these negotiations are continued until a point at which we're able to reach a conclusion. And that, I think, is an important statement to make, because I think that the idea that we can get to a point where we just decide that we're not going to talk to any government and we're not going to engage in trade negotiations, I think would be irresponsible for us as a country.
4 people accused of child abuse and attempted murder are expected back in the Johannesburg Regional Court today. This after a video which has gone viral on social media showed a 4-year-old boy being instructed to light and smoke a substance suspected to be mandrax. The video was taken in New Clare in Johannesburg. Neria Tlakotza reports.
The mother and the 3 co-accused were arrested last week after the video went viral. During their previous court appearance, the state indicated that it needed to verify the addresses of the accused before they could apply for bail. The community of Nuclear has maintained that they should remain behind bars as they seek justice for the young boy.
The trial of a former preschool teacher is expected to start in the High Court in Johannesburg this morning. Amber Lee Hughes is facing 2 counts of rape and 1 count of murder. She confessed to killing her ex-boyfriend's 4-year-old daughter, but pleaded not guilty to the rape charges. The girl was found drowned in a bathtub in a home in Glen Vista in Johannesburg in January 2023. Pusoletso Mukwena reports.
Hughes admitted that the whole incident was triggered by the fight she had with the father of the deceased. She told the court through her lawyer that she was suffering from borderline personality disorder at the time of the killing, but maintains that she was fully aware of her actions. She says she killed the little girl by sitting on top of her face and left her in a bathtub with cold water tap left running. The court is expected to close arguments on her admissions.
Gauteng authorities have urged residents to remain vigilant following the South African Weather Services issuing a warning for severe thunderstorms in most parts of the province. The extreme weather conditions could result in localized flooding, especially in low-lying areas. Cold temperatures, hail and strong winds are expected to continue until tonight. City of Tshwane spokesperson Lindsay Mguni.
Maximum temperatures are also expected to be low due to the cut-off low-pressure system's core moving over Gauteng. The severe thunderstorms are expected to persist from about 12 o'clock in the middle of the night until about 10 o'clock at night on Thursday, 7 August 2025, with 60% chances of rain occurring in Tshwane.
Further afield, and finally, the British government has announced plans for a crackdown on cosmetic procedures, including non-surgical Brazilian butt lifts known as BBL, facial fillers and Botox injections by unqualified staff. The new measures include age restrictions on treatments to protect young people from potentially dangerous beauty trends. The BBC's Dominic Hughes has the details.
There have been long-running concerns over parts of the cosmetic procedure industry. Now there are proposals to allow only suitably qualified health professionals to carry out high-risk procedures such as non-surgical Brazilian butt lifts, often involving the use of dermal fillers to plump up the bottom. There are also plans to introduce a licensing system for the use of lip and facial fillers and Botox injections, and restrictions on what procedures will be available to under 18s.
Recapping the top story, the US tariffs on South African imported goods will take effect in less than 24 hours. However, it's not clear whether South Africa and the US have reached a deal. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
If you want to save on your car insurance premium, you call Outsurance, right? But what if you don't save? Well, they'll give you cash just for trying. You heard right. Just ask for 500 Rand cash. But wait, there's more. If you don't save and have been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years, you can ask them for 1,500 Rand cash. Savings or cash, you always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports Headlines, soccer, we've got the match between the host Stellenbosch FC and Kaizer Chiefs. There's been a venue change, and that was initially scheduled to take place in Cape Town. It has been moved. We'll also bring you movement with the National Bank Open. It's the Canadian sensation Victoria Mboka. She is through to the finals. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning. Here's your top traffic stories around the country. Some of these worth avoiding. The N12 coming from the Ekurhuleni side of Joburg heading to Joburg is under some real pressure. There's crash blocking multiple lanes between Tom Jones Street and Atlas Road. The backlog is pretty severe. It's all the way back almost to Daveyton, almost back to that Kingsway junction. Certainly by the time you get to Pitfontein and then into Benoni, it is solid across all lanes. Looks like you might just be squeezing into a single lane to get past that. It's a very heavy delay. So from Daveyton, Pitfontein, Benoni, look at some side road action to avoid that crash on the M1 North leaving Soweto up by Gordon Road. Heavy pressure on your way through to Randburg this morning. Also crash on the M1 South before Buerta Avenue leaving Pretoria, and in Pretoria crash on Gordon Road southbound at Stanza Bopapi. That's causing a delay coming from the Queenswood area. Fairly heavy queues from Hillcrest heading towards Kloof. Today it's a crash at the top of Fields Hill on the M13, and that queue almost back as far as Old Main Road and looking pretty heavy. Still slow moving at Key Ridge on your way to Pietermaritzburg. And Cape Town, top story there is the major traffic disruption throughout Mitchell's Plain. Extra pressure this morning with the full closure of the R300 due to protesting. The 300's closed between AZ Berman Stock Road and the M7 Jakes Kerwell Drive junction. There's all sorts of backlogging traffic in that area as motorists deal with alternative route actions. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 9 minutes after 7 on this Thursday. It is great to be in your company. Welcome to it, the second hour of the Morning Brief. What we want to do now is just reflect on a key conversation that's been happening that has to do with the tariffs that have been imposed by the United States on countries, including South Africa. Despite the fact that, there's a whole host of countries out there facing these tariffs, that some of which don't share any common features with any of the domestic policies that South Africa has taken, international relations policies, stances on issues such as the situation in the Middle East, for example. Despite all of that, a number of countries face tariffs. And we're talking about it because, while the deadline for negotiation ran out at the end of July and, the coming into effect was from the 1st of August, it really is today that, authorities in the United States are now able to properly implement the tariffs. You'll know that South Africa faces 30% tariff on most exports to the United States. So in the wake of that, there's been this debate that has been bubbling under and ensuing in our country that has to do with who should take accountability for the U.S. taking the position that it has taken. You will hear one side saying that it is the government led by the ANC that should take responsibility for their policies. You'll hear a lot about quote-unquote race-based policies. On the other hand, you'll hear a counter-argument that says there are fellow South Africans, compatriots, lobby groups that went and lobbied in the United States, and now we're getting just dessert from that lobbying. We want you to hear the perspective of the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula yesterday addressing media at the end and reporting back on the outcomes of the recently held National Executive Committee meeting.
Now, we will never forsake our country, which we fought for its liberation. And we're still marching on even now. Not this ANC, not this leadership. If they want to bring sanctions on us, let them bring them. But this country, South Africa, all its citizens know that it is a democratic country, it's a liberated country, and we are still transforming this country in order to achieve equity. And we will still pursue redress because we are not equal in this economy. This economy is still male, white dominated. And you want to tell us to abandon policies that seek to advance transformation. We're told by somebody who's more wealthy than all of countries combined in the world that I'll give you Starlink, but you must not do black economic empowerment. in our country, we must agree to that. It's not possible to agree to that. You are asking us to abandon what we stand for. You are asking the ANC, this African National Congress, to stop struggling and then close shop and become something. We are not DA. DA has to agree with that because they don't want affirmative action. Leave black economic empowerment. They don't want affirmative action. They don't want redress. They don't believe in transformation. Now they are talking about black economic empowerment, which we reviewed and said that is triple BEE. And then we broadened it to be broad-based and all of that. And then their anti-transformation is a party of anti-transformation. So if you ask us all of these things that the Trump administration is asking us to do, they are asking us to abandon the very essence of who we are, which is not going to be possible.
Channel your inner warrior woman this August on Expresso as we celebrate and empower women across South Africa. From trailblazing heroines to inspiring entrepreneurs, we spotlight stories of strength, resilience, and change. Join us for powerful panel chats, wisdom, wellness, and bold conversations on equality, GBV, and women's rights. This Women's Month, rise with the women leading our nation forward. Weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. only on S3.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
Yeah, so that was just a flavor of some of what Fikile Mbalula had to say. A really strong and emphatic message coming through from the ANC after its National Executive Committee on that matter. Let us know what you think, your own reflections on that. But we do need to move on. The bounds of freedom of expression have once again been tested at least 3 times in recent days. In the latest, Patriotic Alliance leader Gayton Mackenzie calling for urgent legal action against the hosts of the Open Chats podcast after a controversial episode surfaced containing deeply offensive and racist remarks about the colored community. The clip, which has since gone viral and sparked public outrage, has led to widespread condemnation and calls for accountability. It came hot off the heels of a High Court judgment dismissing suspended Patriotic Alliance Deputy Leader Kenny Gunene's appeal against his hate speech conviction by the Equality Court over his insults of Julius Malema, as well as media personality Minnie Dlamini's Equality Court lawsuit against podcasters Mac G and Sol Penduka over sexist comments they made about her. It seems worth revisiting then the bounds of freedom of expression and whether or not they are being redrawn in the age of pervasive social and digital media. Let's speak to William Bird, who is Director at Media Monitoring Africa. William, good morning, and thank you for your time. Let me start with that question. Does it appear to you like the bounds of freedom of expression are being redrawn in the wake of these pervasive social and digital media platforms?
Good morning. Well, they've certainly been tested. I don't think it's redrawn. We've got a strong constitution. We've got a very progressive judiciary in the sense of if you look at the results and the court cases that have been taken and the way and the manner in which they've approached freedom of expression. So certainly the digital environment poses all sorts of really interesting challenges for freedom of expression, but I don't think its bounds necessarily are being tested. What we are seeing is obviously a lot more of these kinds of issues where, freedom of expression really is tested when it's in the area.
Does it still come down
obvious.
to... sorry, William, your line broke up a bit there. But I wanted to say, does the debate still come down to balancing an individual's freedom of expression as guaranteed in Section 16 versus other rights, such as the rights to, the rights against discrimination and the right to dignity?
So it depends on whether or not it's hate speech and what the intent of the speech is. If it's intended to be harmful or hurtful, then that's obviously something that you can take to the Equality Court. You can report them to the South African Human Rights Commission, where you need to carry out a context-to-context basis to assess each claim on its merits. So it's not like there's a blanket rule where we can say
this definitely is this. If you say this definitely is this, and this isn't. But it's certainly something that requires a careful balancing of the individual's right to express themselves. So, for example, you also then look at this thing about punching up and punching down. So often if you make fun of Elon Musk or Donald Trump, these are people who are very powerful. And if you were to talk about them as evil white billionaires, that may be stereotyping white people, but you're not talking about something that's punching down. If, however, you talk about black people and colored people, where historically these are people that have been actively disempowered, and particularly if you're making fun of negative stereotypes of them, then that you would say is punching down, and that's far more likely to be coming closer to something that's harmful speech than merely repeating negative stereotypes.
And what's the conversation that's evolving around the ease or difficulty of getting redress when a person's rights have been violated? In the particular case we're talking about now, the Open Chats podcast, it seems sanity prevailed at the advice of the revered Professor Sizwe Simelane, and there's been an unreserved, unconditional apology that has been issued out to the general public in South Africa, to the colored community, etc. But that's one case. How easy is it and how difficult is it to gain redress when you've been subject of defamatory comments, derogatory and hate speech, as we've seen in some of these instances?
So if it's hate speech, for example, then the South African Human Rights Commission has got wide powers and wide jurisdiction. And we've seen that it necessarily compel one of the platforms, even in the case of X, to supply them with the information.
William, we seem to be losing your line. Yeah, we have lost the line there to William Bird. Just battling with it towards the end there. But as I was saying, in some instances you find individuals needing to litigate at great expense to themselves because litigation is not cheap, right, in South Africa. But as I was saying, in the case of the Open Chats podcast, the lawyers, the representatives, the legal representatives of the Open Chats podcast hosts, then issuing out that extensive apology that came through from Professor Sizwe Simelane, who is a leading authority in as far as cyber law is concerned. And it goes into details. I mean, it even repeats what exactly was said, and then it says it expresses a full and unconditional apology for those comments made in that. Whether that is good enough, of course, is another topic altogether.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
21 minutes after 7. Let's return to a story that we consistently cover, right? Because it continues to be an issue of concern in the country. Unemployed doctors, specifically in KwaZulu-Natal, holding a shutdown march in Pietermaritzburg this week, marking the 7th consecutive week of peaceful protest outside the Premier's office. The group is demanding urgent placements within the provincial health system, highlighting the ongoing crisis of qualified medical professionals unable to find work amid critical healthcare staff shortages. Let's welcome Dr. Nobuhle Makanya, who is spokesperson of the Unemployed Doctors in KZN. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Much of your action and agitation and activism of late has been targeted at the Premier's office in KwaZulu-Natal. Why? Why is that a center of focus where you believe action should emanate from?
Good morning and thank you for having me. Good morning to all the listeners. So why we have then decided to now reach out to the Premier of the KZN This comes as basically of a sequence of events that were not fruitful with the Department of Health that we had initiated our talks with from the beginning of January. We engaged with them, I think, up until May, when there still wasn't anything fruitful coming from our side and our plea. That is when we had decided to then take to the streets for the third time. We staged a sit-in, but now it was targeted, or it was reaching out to the Premier as a result of our failed communications with the KZN Department of Health.
And my understanding is that you had previous engagements with the Premier that resulted in undertakings that you are saying were not fulfilled. Which ones are those?
So initially in January, when we began our engagements with the Department of Health, we did receive, or we were told that we were knocking at the wrong door. We were more supposed to knock in Treasury because he's the one who decides, or he's the one who has more influence on budgets and the Premier. So that is how, even in our very first march in January, it wasn't just targeted at the Department of Health, but we had reached out to the three stakeholders, being Department of Health, Finance, and the Premier at the time, because there was just a lot of finger pointing that, no, don't come to me, this is where you should be going. So at that point initially, we just directed it to all three. But when actual engagements came, it was then the Department of Health who received us initially. But as time went on, obviously our engagements with them were not being fruitful, leading on to now reaching out to the Premier. The latest engagement we had with him was that of the 11th of July, where he met with us with SAMA, the South African Medical Association. So we had a chance to meet with him and discuss these issues. That was after the 20 post that they had agreed to releasing was released. And then, so from that meeting we had with the Premier on the 11th of July, he committed to even sourcing out from different departments to try and address this issue of unemployment. And then we were supposed to meet by the end of July from his own commitment as a follow-up of the issue. But that did not happen once again. And it just further ruined our trust that we had, because we just got a lot of this promises being made and not kept, commitments being made and not kept.
Is part of the explanation you've been getting in these engagements, is it the complexity of what has been this year's budgeting cycle in terms of the legislative process that played itself out in Parliament, the complexity and difficulty resulting perhaps in what has been announced in the budget by the finance minister taking a while to filter through such processes as the equitable share and the likes? Does that even come up as an explanation to you in the official meetings that you are holding?
Yes, that has come up, especially in the follow-up emails that we've had from the Department of Health, that they are still waiting for allocation from National, and hence they would say that they could not do anything as a result of that.
In the meantime, though, I imagine that the plight of these doctors and other healthcare professionals languishing in unemployment is getting worse by the day. I mean, even this number that we're talking about, 50 posts that had been promised, I imagine that must be a drop in the ocean given the demand for placements.
Yes, it definitely is. We all have a duty, even as healthcare professionals, to continue to defend and protect the healthcare system. So when we get responses like that, for us, it just seems as if our healthcare is not being given the priority that it deserves, and our people are not being given the priority that they do deserve. So as much as it is a start, it as you said, it is a drop in the ocean, but we are hoping that the government will be doing more to expand on this and try to actually address the problem, because healthcare does matter. A lot of people in our communities and in our population seek healthcare in the public sector, so it should not be underplayed.
And from the marches and the activity that has been taking place now, what's the sense of the way forward? Will you be continuing to picket, or is there a sense that there could soon be a meeting of minds of sort?
So yesterday when we had the march, we were fortunately engaged or received by the Ministry of Health for KZN, and she did commit to releasing more posts by Monday. She committed to the releasing of 100 more posts this following Monday. So as the group, as we had said, we have just we have lost some trust. So the decision that we had taken is that we definitely welcome the release of 100 more posts, but our protest continues until that is actually done, because it is one thing to commit and to promise to do something, but action has to be seen. I mean, it's been 8 months and we've been fighting the same battle. So our protest stops once that commitment has been done. And it doesn't stop because the issue has now completely been resolved. The fight for unemployment still continues, not just for doctors or for healthcare professionals, but as we are all aware in South Africa, unemployment is a big issue that affects the youth. So that fight still continues, regardless of those posts being released.
Yeah. So very quickly then, confirmation, 100 posts on Monday next week. Is that the undertaking?
Yes, that is the undertaking.
Okay, it's worth following through on it. Thank you for your time this morning, Dr. Nobuhle Makanya, who speaks on behalf of unemployed doctors in KZN.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, good morning to you, Zai. Amakosi versus Stellenbosch FC, the season opener. Why is it being moved from the DHL Stadium in Cape Town?
No, it's the new venue, but it's the same drama. The venue has been changed inland to Athlone amid concerns about the current playing surface, as well as some logistical issues. Stellies already began their new campaign. They took part in the MTN 8 quarterfinal season opener last weekend. Steve Barker's men holding their nerve 3-2. It was their extra time victory over AmaZulu. Now they prepare to host Kaizer Chiefs over the weekend on Sunday, and looking forward to seeing the drama play out on the field as opposed to being off the field. Let's go to Durban City coach Gavin Hunt, calm under the gaze of Ernst Middendorf. Hunt was appointed alongside the German mentor in different roles following City's promotion back to Betway Premiership. The duo have been putting the pieces of the puzzle together in an attempt to make City a formidable team this season.
A lot of work, it's not easy, we're trying to build a team, trying to bring in new players, but yeah, it's been good, response has been good, still the nucleus of the team from last year, but trying to add a few numbers in to try and make the squad a little bit more competitive, which is important.
Let's go to the host Tanzania now. They're on course for a place in the quarterfinal of the CAF African Nations Champions following a 1-0 victory over Mauritania, and Burkina Faso earning a 4-2 victory over the debutant Central African Republic at the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Dar es Salaam, reigniting their hopes in the group stage. And cricket, Bayanda Majola claimed an impressive 4-wicket haul, but it was just not enough for South Africa's under-19 men. They were edged out by 5 wickets against Bangladesh's under-19 in their last Robin match of the Youth One-Day Tri-Series in Harare. The seamer, Majola, claimed 4 for 29 in an excellent 10 overs, with his strike initially leaving Bangladesh in heaps of trouble, chasing 148, before they recovered to chase down the target with little more over 20 overs to spare. And finally, tennis action. The Canadian wildcard Victoria Mboko saving a match point on the way to a thrilling 1-6, 7-5, 7-6 victory over former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina to reach the final of the WTA Canadian Open. We'll serve up more sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, some members of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition have called on government officials to continue their tariff talks with their US counterparts. The aim of the talks is to mitigate the impact of the 30% tariff the US imposed on South African imported goods. The trial of 6 men accused of the murder of 18 people in the Ngobazana village in Lusikisiki last year is expected to continue in the High Court in Umtata, sitting in a local magistrates' court in the Eastern Cape today. And the ANC has admitted it might not successfully convince the SACP to abandon its decision to contest future elections independently. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Just down into Mitchell's Plain, Cape Town for an update on the R300 protesting. The road has been opened westbound, so that's coming off the N2, driving down to Stock Road, going into Mitchell's Plain. That side is open, but there's a big, heavy backlog on that R300. The side coming from the M7 Jake Scovell Drive appears to still be closed, although we're hearing that may open very soon as well. So a lot of congestion around the Mitchell's Plain area. Just take it for the moment. You can't get in off the M7. You can get in off the N2, but it's all heavily backed up. And there's a lot of congestion around AZ Berman and Highlands Drive, as those routes largely were used and are being used as alternative routes. Still, just staying in Cape Town, another busy one on the R300 as you line up through Brackenfell up towards the N1, the N7, pretty heavy from Langer up through Epping and then all the way up through Goodwoods. A lot of traffic on that N7 Jake Scovell Drive run north today, and Marine Drive coming out of Tableview, sitting from Bayside Mall to Racecourse Road. Major delays east of Joburg through Ekurhuleni on the N12 coming from Daveyton. There's an issue with what appears to be a stationary truck at Pitfontein, and then a major crash between Tom Jones and Atlas Road. One lane open, big queues almost back to Kingsway. Coming out of Soweto, the N1 North is pretty heavily backed up towards at least Albertina, Sisula and Maresburg area. And Durban side, that M13 taking a while to sort of clear and sort itself out. A crash at the top of Fields Hill means a very heavy queue coming in from Hillcrest on the M13, as well as a lot of congestion inside Kloof trying to get into the M13, and other motorists taking off on the Y-Bank Road. You can see how busy that is this morning, trying to escape the M13, and heavy pressure N2 both ways through Spaghetti Junction. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. With creatures of comfort like you and convenience, creatures of comfort and convenience like you, I'm not surprised that Uber Eats has topped market estimates.
Yeah, both in the Eats category and the e-hailing category, Thulas, and this was driven by strong revenue
Uber,
growth.
not Uber Eats.
Yes.
You see, it
Yes.
shows where my mind is. Food.
Food, right? But it's morning breakfast is too, I
Yeah.
understand. Now, this was driven by strong revenue growth and a surge in bookings. The company's revenue increased 18% to $12.6 billion, beating analyst estimates of $12.4 billion. The company's mobility segment saw gross bookings rise 18% on an annual basis to over $23 billion, while delivery gross bookings increased 20%. Now, the firm attributed the company's success to steady consumer demand, stating that users are booking around 3.3 billion trips, up 18% from a year earlier. Looking ahead, the group is optimistic about its prospects, pointing to steady demand for its services. In response to its strong performance, Uber's board of directors authorized a $20 billion stock buyback, demonstrating the company's confidence in its financial prospects.
The picture not so rosy for Glencore, though, in the mining sector, yeah?
Yeah, the diversified miner taking a hit in the first half of the year due to weak coal prices and a decline in copper production. Glencore posting a wider loss while its net debt increased by $3.5 billion compared to the end of December. Now, several factors contributed to the decline in copper production, including planned mine sequencing, lower grades, water constraints, and cobalt stockpiling at its Chilean, Peruvian, and Congolese mines. Coal prices, the group says, have been under pressure, falling over 21% in the past 12 months due to trade uncertainty and policy uncertainty. Despite these challenges, though, Glencore remains optimistic about a rebound in copper production in the second half of the year, which would then help drive the company's financial performance. It has also announced plans to cut costs and improve efficiency, with an operational review revealing around $1 billion in potential cost savings to be delivered by the end of its financial year 2026.
Lastly, Dowling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
So kicking things off in Asia, stocks in the green, with the Hong Kong Hang Seng leading the gains, up 0.6%. This as investors seem to be moving on from tariff threats on the semiconductor and pharma sectors. The optimism filtering through to Wall Street, with futures in positive territory. Traders on that front digesting market-beating results from Uber and McDonald's. And then coming back home, the JSE ending the day positively, with the all share crossing the 100,000 point all-time high yet again, closing close to 0.5% higher. Gains also being seen in the currency markets this morning, with the rand stronger at 17.75 to the dollar. Oil, in the meantime, steady this hour at $66.30 per barrel.
All right, thank you for that. We'll talk to you one more time just after 8:30. That's Ntauling Lechela, watching business and economics for you this morning.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 2 litre Spar Extra Shelf Life Milk, full cream or low fat for $31.99, plus 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 200 gram Jacob's Cronin coffee jar or 230 gram refill for $144.99, plus 300 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million rand in instant cash. Prices valid until 24 August 2025, while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Have you discovered the TV license WhatsApp yet? We see you binging reruns, living for the drama, loving the SABC Plus sports replays. Now, paying your TV license fits the vibe. Simply say hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060. Get your balance, make a payment, or set up a debit order all in one chat. No queues, no please hold, just convenience that feels like it should have been here all along. Because every screen in South Africa is a stage and yours is lit. So why wait? Send hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060 and get your TV license sorted today. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
All right, let's fit in some of your WhatsApp voice notes that have come through, as well as your calls that you've been sending. In fact, let me go right to the beginning. Someone wants to reflect on is it a dance? Shall we call it a dance? Diplomatic dance. Yeah, let's call it that. Between the Russian President Vladimir Putin and the US President Donald Trump. We reported on that, of course, in our international update right at the start of the show.
Hi. There is no way Putin will back off up until he reaches the goals he wanted to achieve. Putin is serious about this issue, and Putin, he doesn't care what Trump says. And I think now is the time for Putin to show that he doesn't control by America. And the other thing, the professor you just called to analyze the issues of USA and Russia. He is pushing the agenda of the imperialist. He doesn't even understand what is happening at USA. This is Jacob in Mokopane.
Jacob, thank you for that. Feel free to differ with the guest that we brought on, but to say he doesn't understand, he just doesn't share your perspective, and that's why you come into the conversation. And the next person we talk to may actually coincide, their views may actually happen to coincide with your views. But I take the point that you are making about Putin not backing down. And I think I've seen it also in the reportage that he sees this war in Ukraine as being linked to his legacy and is unlikely to back down. The flip side of it, which is always important to also reflect, is that Donald Trump believes that an economy like the Russian economy, highly dependent on oil and gas exports, if you start hitting those, not directly by, sanctioning Russia, but sanctioning those countries that are buying Russian oil. So you saw the tariffs for India, for example, went from 25% and an additional 25% has now been added. That's the strategy across the Atlantic from the Trump administration. He believes that's what's fueling and funding the war effort. And if you squeeze that, you may force a negotiation, a more genuine negotiation to come to fruition quite soon. So perspectives, perspectives differ, and that's always welcome.
Morning, Tulas. It's Chris from Pietermaritzburg. In your summation, I see that you did not mention the reckless statement by Philip Mbalula yesterday, daring Trump to bring on sanctions. We cannot lie to ourselves. If the Americans were to impose sanctions on South Africa, there'll be pain suffered by largely the poor population of this country. Mbalula cannot be allowed to make such a reckless statement. One would have thought he has grown into his position to know the maturity that is expected of his statements. Populism does not build a country, nor does it make you a better leader. We should stop him.
Yeah, of course, that message from Chris came in a bit earlier on before we played you that clip at the top of the hour 7, the comments of the ANC Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula. And Chris, I think there's very little debate about the devastating impact were sanctions to be imposed. And sanctions, quite apart from, what we're talking about now, which is tariffs. And at the moment, everyone talking about how a number of countries are facing these tariffs, and some of them at a higher level than South Africa. India becomes that, for example, because they move from 25 to 50% tariffs. So you are absolutely spot on. I think there's a grappling, for those who understand, there's a grappling with the reality of sanctions. And hence, you've been seeing this cautious tone certainly coming through from government. But those comments coming through from the ANC Secretary General, I wonder to what extent they align with the leaders, especially the leaders of foreign policy in government.
Good day, Tulas. It's Luyanda here in the Eastern Cape. I just want to inform anyone who has a degree in agriculture or related field that the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development has advertised some posts, agricultural assistant posts, on its government website, DPSA, vacancy 27. All interested people or job seekers should visit that website and apply. As we know that a lot of our brothers and sisters are sitting at home with qualifications. So hope that will be helpful.
Yeah, it is absolutely helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Department of Agriculture, look out for those jobs that have been advertised. I mean, we saw it recently with the South African Police Service and those jobs that they had, that recruitment drive. I think they wanted 5,000 people, 5,500, and they ended up with over 1 million applications. So every bit helps. So if you can share information that will be helpful for someone, you are absolutely spot on. Let me take a call from Linda in Boksburg. Good morning to you, Linda.
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead. You want to talk about Fikile Mbalula?
Yes. I think the ANC must now realize the time is up with their shenanigans of thinking that revolutionary rhetoric is going to solve our problems. They must sit down and really think deep about how are we going to progress as a country.
Yeah.
They have locked themselves in the so-called government of national unity, which is basically a coalition between themselves and the DA. They need to resolve this confusion they have about what is it that what type of relations they want to build with the West and other allies that they deem to be the left allies.
Yeah.
They must know where their bread is buttered. That's the issue. Whether we like it or not, capitalism is the economy of the world, and unfortunately, capitalism is not built on sentiments and revolution. It's built on profits.
Sure.
And the people who are running it are determined to make as much money as they can. Once they realize that and build an understanding of how to take the country forward economically, then you would have a better country.
All right.
Otherwise, we have fools just running around masquerading as leaders.
All right, Linda, thank you for that. That's Linda in Boksburg saying that wise up, wake up and smell the coffee of what's really at play in terms of the situation with capitalism around the world. Sianda in Karieha, good morning to you. You want to talk about sanctions this morning. I imagine that this is an issue that's very close to you in that area, in that corner of the world. We've been talking about tariffs and how they're going to devastate the exports from that region to the United States. Talk to me about sanctions.
Morning, Thulas. You're spot on. But I just want to correct the guy that was saying Fikile Mbalula was talking about sanctions.
Yes.
The sanctions that he was referring to are the targeted sanctions to individuals, not the country.
Yes, the bill that was before Congress and it passed through one of the committee, and that's separate from the tariffs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm saying he was referring to that, not the entire country, saying it's fine. If they want to target us as individuals, let them go ahead. So in that part, we are fine as a country.
Yep, but now, Sianda, let me share the experience with you. I think I shared it on the day when the bill passed through that committee. The reality, if you ask anyone who's lived in a country that has faced the so-called targeted sanctions, is that in the end, the effect is the same. It ends up affecting more than just the people that it targeted. And I can talk because I lived in Zimbabwe for a few years as the SABC bureau chief in that country. And I could see where, they said it's targeted sanctions. You can't travel to our country, you can't do, but eventually, and I think I sum it up this way when I say and I'll get you to respond in a moment. I sum it up this way. American companies that would otherwise have invested in that economy, when they now have to navigate and look through a list, this person is linked to that person who happens to be an ANC member of a regional executive committee in Butlabela, then it sort of has that off-putting effect. That's one of the many impacts, with the result that many companies just decide too much admin, we won't get involved. Do you share that concern? Do you understand that concern? That it might hit more than,
Let me say it like this: we learn every day, because what you are giving me as an experience is something that I did not know. So I wouldn't dispute that.
Yeah, and there are many other examples. But thank you for your engagement this morning. That's Sianda in Karieha. Let me go to Peggy in Mpumalanga. Good morning to you, Peggy. The doctors on strike. On your mind this morning?
My heart is bleeding. Thulas. Because when you go to the public healthcare services in Mpumalanga, I gave myself time when first you brought this matter on your show. I visited the public healthcare in around Mpumalanga. There are not sufficient doctors, and nurses has got limited knowledge whenever maybe there is a situation that calls for an urgent attention and for the doctor to scrutinize that particular situation. I beg to the authorities who are listening today, particularly the minister's office and those in the presidency, because I know they listen to this show due to its LSM. Please ensure that only not KwaZulu-Natal, but all the provinces, the debt must be filled and doctors must be employed. It can't be correct that you go to a public health care service and there is no doctor at all. I know time is against us. You must go to traffic because I always listen to the show. Thulas, please. I am praying.
Peggy? All right, I don't know what happened there. Peggy, I think we lost Peggy on the line there. But nevertheless, thank you for that, Peggy. Also doing a bit of the work for me and saying that we are going to traffic next. And Peggy is absolutely spot on.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
He knew, didn't he? Becky knew. He knew that traffic was coming. Well done, Becky. Nice one. Good morning to you. Good morning, South Africa. The R300 in Cape Town has been reopened. It was closed earlier today between Stock Road and the M7 Jake Scoville Drive due to some fairly impressive protesting that happened earlier this morning. The road is open and traffic now able to move freely along that section. There is a lot of congestion in Mitchell's Plain as a result of motorists having to divert earlier. Just staying in the Cape, the N7 pretty heavy going down into the work zone at 4 Trekker Road this morning. Also, if you come out of Kales River, the 4 Trekker Road, Strand Road option coming from the R300 through Stickland down to Belleville. There's quite an unusual backlog to get through there. Now, you've been hearing about the warnings of rain and hail across northern parts of the country. There is a massive hailstorm moving through Limpopo. It has caused chaos on the N1. There are at least 3 crash scenes that we're aware of between Polokwane and Mokopane in a hailstorm condition. So if you need to go that way, factor in some queues and maybe just sit out that storm and wait till it's a little bit safer to travel along. The N12 out of Davyton through Benoni remains heavily backed up this morning. Big crash before you get to Atlas Road, which is causing that delay. The M13 coming out of Hillcrest on your way down to Pinetown remains heavy. Crash just at the top of Fields Hill, taking forever to clear. Big queues from Hillcrest. A lot of congestion inside and through the Kloof area as well. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
After a 2-0 loss against Morocco in the Chan opener, the Angolans are digging deep for their first victory. However, the hosts, Harambee Stars, are chasing their second consecutive win in their own backyard. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Be part of the action. Angola versus Kenya. This Thursday, 7 August at 6 p.m. Live everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Bafana are confident they can defeat the West Africans. Meanwhile, the national elephants want to step their foot down and walk away with victory. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Be part of the thrilling action. South Africa clashes with Guinea on Monday, 11 August at 4 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Tani Esther, or should I say the Tupperware Tani? How's business going?
Business is booming. I've been operating out of the boot of my car for 10 years, but shame, it couldn't keep up with my growing empire.
Okay, so you sold it to We Buy Cars?
Yes, quick. Sold my old one, bought a bigger one. I even sold some of my Tupperware to the friendly guy who picked up my car.
Stick to what you know best, eh, Tony?
Excuse me?
Never mind. We Buy Cars. Geared for your business, geared for you.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
6 minutes to 8. Let's return to a story that we covered yesterday with the Public Servants Association that has to do with the Government Employees Medical Scheme, GEMS, the country's largest medical scheme for public servants. Well, we told you that it is facing mounting pressure from major public sector unions to cap its 2026 premium increase below 10%. This follows a widely criticized 13.4% hike in 2025, which broke a trend of modest post-pandemic increases and sparked backlash from unions and members alike. So let's speak to Dr. Stanley Mulwabi, who is the Principal Officer of the Government Employees Medical Scheme. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So let's start with from your vantage point, what's your reading of the impact of the increase that came in earlier on in the year before we get to the call by trade unions for the increases to be kept under 10% next year? How is it looking in terms of member affordability, retention, and just sticking to, the plans that members have had?
Good morning, Tate Simelane, and good morning to the listeners of SAFM this morning. What is it we are observing from a vantage point in terms of what happened at the beginning of this year? We referring to the 13.4. Well, the reason there was a 13.4, as we have explained and in previous engagements, that it was necessary because it was dealing with a trend that was not predicted, which was that the utilization by members during 2024, the preceding year, was higher than budgeted for. So this was certainly something we had not anticipated, and it is something that, based on actuarial methods, we had to deal with. The impact has been that the scheme then remains, sustainable from all the requirements that we are supposed to meet, and those being in the main paying for claims, that our members are incurring during the year, and secondly, to remain within the statutory reserve requirements.
Yeah.
So those two are very important. So that is basically what we are seeing. So in terms of what is happening at the moment is that the claims continue to be putting a strain on. So the high claims environment has not, reduced to the extent that we would have lapsed to.
That sounds ominous. That you're saying the factor that you're saying drove this higher than normal increase continues to prevail. The trend of higher claims. That sounds ominous for the prospect of lower increases next year.
Well, your description I would agree with. However, that at the end, because there's a lot of work, this is receiving priority attention within the scheme, and we have already come up with various interventions that we think will have an impact. It may not be to the extent, and this extent, it's firstly, I think generally it is mentioned that the minimum expectation is that, and this is the what is usually used by our the unions, is that no double digits that is usually used. However, ideally, because MPI is anywhere around what CPI is, plus 3 to 4%.
Yeah.
So it would be anywhere between 6 and 8.5% thereabout. It has averaged over the past few years around 8.5%. So the expectation generally from our members is that the increase should be at least around MPI.
Is that expectation from your members realistic, given the trend you are observing around the high claims that you're saying continue to be a factor, but also the other interventions that you've not, spelled out that you're saying you are putting in place? Is that expectation of the increase being around medical price inflation realistic?
Difficult at the moment, but not impossible if we can work together with our members.
Just lastly, Dr. Mulwabi, before I run out of time, talk to me about the solvency ratio of the medical scheme. We are told it peaked at 47% in 2021 and has since fallen down to 26.4% in May and is expected to hit 25% by end of year. What's happening there?
It was deliberate to help members, and I'll explain briefly. So post-COVID, so that is basically around 2021, 2022, that's what we'd say post-COVID, we had the savings that were realized because of people utilizing the medical schemes less because they were avoiding health institutions not to catch COVID. So it rose. Then our members, all of us in the country, were saying tough economic times, and because of this, we need help whenever. So then we came to the party, we said, well, instead of the normal, and a normal in brackets here, increase of about, would have been anywhere between 7 and 8% around MPI at that time. The scheme then said, well, we have these high reserves. We don't have to hold high reserves. Let's assist our members. So over a 2 to 3 year period up to 2024, we helped our members with about 10 billion from our reserves.
Right.
And that is why the reserves went down.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Dr. Stanley Mulwabi, who is the Principal Officer of the Government Employees Medical Scheme, GEMS. Let's go straight to Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, US tariffs on South African imported goods to take effect and the Thulasizwe mass murder case back in court. Good morning. Some members of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition have called on government officials to continue tariff talks with the US counterparts. The aim of the talks is to mitigate the impact of the 30% tariff the US imposed on South African imported goods. South Africa faces the highest tariff rates in the sub-Saharan Africa, which some see as a reflection of its strained relations with the US. The ACDP says government is to blame for the situation in South Africa. Party MP Wentring says there must be ways of preventing the escalation of the problem.
The African Christian Democratic Party warned government about the looming effects of US tariffs and the non-renewal of the AGOA Treaty on the lives of ordinary South Africans as well as on our economy. In this regard, we call on government to mitigate these effects by engaging in constructive and meaningful diplomatic bilateral engagements with the Trump administration. Regrettably, our government has scored own goals in this regard, with the Rasool debacle, our former ambassador, as well as our breaking away from our non-aligned international relations policy.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump's latest wave of reciprocal tariffs on exports from several dozen trading partners has countries and companies scrambling for better deals. South Africa's agriculture and automotive sectors are expected to be the hardest hit. However, the Trade, Industry and Competition Department says it plans to implement an economic response package to support the affected businesses. The tariffs are set to take effect in less than 24 hours. Showan Bryce Peace reports.
South Africa is not alone in seeking to finalise a new trade framework with the US, Canada facing a 35% tariff rate, Switzerland a whopping 39%, Brazil a punitive 50% among a host of countries slapped with new duties. The impact's expected to be felt in those source countries, but also in the United States, where consumers are likely to bear the brunt. Moody's Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi on social media this week, warning that the US economy was on the precipice of a recession, a view echoed by others.
The trial of 6 men accused of the murder of 18 people in the Ngobazana village in Thulasizwe last year is expected to continue in the High Court in Mthatha, sitting in a local magistrate's court in the Eastern Cape today. The accused are facing charges including murder, attempted murder, conspiracy to murder and kidnapping. Yesterday, the state called 2 witnesses. The mother of the late Ruth King was the first to testify. Cebisi Nqina reports.
The visible terrified witness gave details about the day of the massacre. She told the court that they were still sleeping in the early hours of the morning when she heard the stone hitting the front door. She says the door was then kicked open before many people stormed the house shouting. Later she heard gunshots and her daughter Ruth screaming, calling her for help. She broke down and cried as she testified that she and other 2 women hid behind the bed as the gunshots continued. The case has been postponed until Thursday morning, where the state is expected to call the next witness.
The SACP says it's surprised the ANC expects it to change its resolution on contesting elections. The SACP had resolved to independently contest the 2026 local government elections. Its spokesperson Mbolelo Mabandla says the ANC should instead be concerned about how the alliance should pursue a common program.
The words of the SG and the press conference of the ANC do not recognize these processes and seem only intent on projecting the Communist Party as intransigent and unreasonable, which of course is both false and cynical. What is in the purview of political engagement is, in the context of the existence of this decision, how can the alliance continue to operate and allow for the pursuing of the common program between us, the National Transformation Project, the National Democratic Revolution as a political program by which the ANC and the SACP, COSATU and SANCO alliance exists.
Meanwhile, the ANC has admitted it might not successfully convince the SACP to abandon its decision to contest future elections independently. The ANC Secretary-General, Fikile Mbalula.
The SACP wants to contest elections. We may not succeed to persuade them to get out of that resolution. If all fails, we must now, as the ANC, sit down and decide what are we going to do. But we have agreed with the SACP to meet. You can see from the General Secretary that is determined to implement that resolution. That resolution have got far-reaching implications for the Alliance and the Communist Party. So we will talk to the Communist Party as per mandate, but should we fail, we're going to convene an NEC meeting special to look at local government. That will include the discussion on the SACP decision.
Recapping the top stories, some members of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition have called on government officials to continue tariff talks with their US counterparts. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
Have you heard the latest news? Vincent, a 40-year-old man, wanted to save money on his car insurance premium, so he got a quote from Outsurance. Vincent now saves a massive 990 Rand a month on his 2022 Ford Ranger 2.2-litre. Get a quote today. See how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 08 600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. You always get something out. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, soccer, the Orlando Pirates striker Shekofatso Mabasa laying down the gauntlet to the rivals. And in tennis action, Victoria Mboko rallies into the Montreal final. She'll play Naomi Osaka. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
South African Weather Service has been warning about heavy rains and thunderstorm activity across northern regions. It has hit Polokwane through the Mokopane section of the M1 this morning. Hail falling there as we speak. Multiple crash scenes on that section of the M1. If you need to go that way, expect some delays. If you can travel later, that might be a good call as well. Video of the conditions up on Twitter at Traffic SA. You can have a look at that. Also, north of Middelburg in Mpumalanga, a major truck fire at Kransport Pass. That section at 11 is going to be obstructed for a while. Into Joburg through Ekurhuleni. The M12 remains heavy. A crash before Atlas Road. Traffic parked all the way back through to Davyton side. That's a really heavy backlog across all lanes. Just a single lane open to filter that traffic through. Hillcrest down to Pinetown remains busy along the M13 after an earlier crash on Fields Hill. A lot of traffic jamming Cassia Road to avoid it out of Hillcrest, and a lot of traffic jammed all up the Y-Bank Road in and out of the Kloof area as well. The N2 South, the breakdown before Spaghetti Junction is very heavy. Traffic parking back almost to Inanda Road. And Cape Town, the R300 in and out of Mitchell's Plain's been fully reopened after protesting earlier this morning. Busy in Mitchell's Plain, but the R300 is open, and a lot of traffic on the N7 south towards Voortrekker Road, northbound to Bosmansdam. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 8. Can you believe it? We are into the third hour of the Morning Brief on this Thursday. What happened to the time? Let me just start the hour off by reflecting on some of the messages that have been coming through on our WhatsApp line. Vomurwa in Vomurwa, no, doesn't say where Vomurwa is, but says the Mole mayoral chain in Limpopo disappeared 10 years ago. It has not been found yet. And that is in reference to the conversation we will have just before we wrap up the show about the police confirming in Gauteng that they are closing this investigation into the Sedibeng district mayoral chain that disappeared, I think 2023, thereabouts, and has not been found yet. No suspect arrested, and the NPA simply won't prosecute because I suppose the case presented to them, I mean, where's the suspect? Bring us a suspect to prosecute. Who do you want us to prosecute? And the chain has not been found. So we will have a conversation with King Sol Chabalala just before we end off the show, and we want to just reflect on it. How symbolic is it? How emblematic is it of the state of play in a municipality when a mayoral chain, nothing turns on it. It's ceremonial. It doesn't change the situation in terms of the pipes that are being laid, in terms of the road being paved, potholes, water, etc. But what does it say when an entire ceremonial mayoral chain, possibly in existence for many, many years, if not decades, and suddenly it's gone, and we're told it's worth 465,000 rand or thereabouts, and it's not been found. I think that's the point of that conversation. Bomorwa, thank you for that. And then MK in Durban says, the issue of unemployed doctors, why are we making it sound like one qualification is more important than the other? What about other unemployed graduates from other fields? Asks MK there in Durban. Partly MK because it has to do with the delivery of a crucial service to the community in South Africa, right? Delivery of health, which is the responsibility in the main of the state to provide, especially for those who can't afford private medical aid. But also the other tragedy of that story is that doctors are trained. My understanding is that at great expense to, South Africans, and, there should be a return on that investment, and we're not realizing it. And you have people unemployed when the system actually desperately needs them. So there's that disconnect, and I think that's why it gets highlighted. And it's always been said that it's one of the specialist fields that you can't go wrong if you are a doctor, because the system needs doctors. And then when they are not able to find employment, that's why you have the kind of conversations that we are having. Lastly, let me read a message from TG, who says, this professor from Stellenbosch University is not telling the truth, and it is unfortunate that the SAFM journalists and hosts continue to call him to analyze, but always he pushes a Western agenda that undermines the Russian Federation's successes in the operations in Ukraine. And truly speaking, Moscow forces are gaining more territories in Ukraine. TG, no one can argue and quibble with what you are saying about the progress that Russia is making in Ukraine, the bombardment, the consistent bombardment. We've reported on it, the aerial bombardment campaign, the drones, the missiles, almost daily, nightly, that are being launched into Ukraine. Right now, there's the strike that occurred near the nuclear facility. I can't pronounce the name of that region of Ukraine. But sometimes it's about a particular aspect that you are focusing on. Today's aspect was about the diplomatic effort between the United States and Russia, and what the United States sees as its leverage to say, we can use this as leverage to force a conversation. There can be multiple stories that are true at the same time, right? So what you are saying may be true on the ground. We did not touch on the situation on the ground. And I don't think it's fair criticism when our guest was talking to a particular aspect of a complex story that has many dimensions. But the point that I will take from what you are saying, we can diversify our commentary as a station on that particular issue. That I'm willing to concede and take. You can give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Also, your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Let's get the third hour of the show underway.
The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay.
Some songs take you back instantly to your first love, a road trip, or just simpler times. The soundtrack of your life with me, Ernest Pillay, is where timeless hits and forgotten favorites come together to tell your story. It's not just music, it's memories, moments, and the meaning behind this jam.
Don't you change someone by night.
Rediscover the songs that shaped your journey. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 p.m., only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me start with a call from Temba in Gqeberha. Good morning to you, Temba.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. Please go ahead.
Look, Thulasizwe, 3 things from me.
Yeah.
Last night, my wife is so religious, she does not venture into politics or economy. But they spend half of the night talking about the situation in the country or in the world. They are now caught up in retrenchments in their factory. I'm not going to say where, but it's in the pharmaceutical. And when I tried to put up the argument of going into new markets, she came up with a sophisticated discussion of patent rights. That if you think you're going to venture into new markets, BRICS, if you think of, patent rights are still with the Western world and Americans. And if you think that these companies here will be allowed by Americans to deploy these products in other markets because we are in the perfect war, they are not going to be allowed by those investors and patent rights holders in America. So when government says let's look into other markets, they are less sophisticated in understanding what is currently obtaining in the world economic markets. That's one. Two, we do not have, unfortunately, I'm saying it here very late, when we went into BRICS, both the ANC and government did not have what I would call a supreme plan to respond in circumstances of the nature what is happening today. Because clearly America is recalibrating itself into the world, and it has realized that it's losing so much and going down the years. Even the population dynamics in America are said to be changing.
I've got to push you, Temba, to your third point.
They've got to do something now.
Yeah.
But the last one from me, with the industrial unions no longer major part of COSATU and the ANC, I wonder, in the NEC of the ANC, who speaks eloquently and with clarity on the matters that are obtaining in the world today? Who in the ANC NEC speaks if economics and business leaders are not invited into the NEC meeting? Who speaks?
Yeah. All right, Temba, thank you for that. You've gotten us thinking on a whole host of issues. That's Temba out in Gqeberha. Let me speak to Lala in Polokwane. Good morning to you, Lala. Long time no speak, my friend. You want to talk?
Yeah, it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
Thank you. The issue with the triple BEE, I don't think Vigilant Barilla got it right. We are not benefiting. Basically, the biggest losers when coming to the issue of the triple BEE are the poor people, more especially the blacks. I've said it before that that thing is only benefiting the elite or those who are connected to those who are in power, or the Indians, the colors, and the African people from.
All right, I don't know what happened to Lala there in the middle of making that point. I really don't know. Okay, now I've lost Hassan as well. So we'll see if we can come back. We'll try and make time and come back to your calls and WhatsApp voice notes a bit later on.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
EFC is live this Thursday in the heart of Africa. Battle lines are drawn. Africa's best face Europe's elite. Vili, the White Lion van Rooyen, is now back to defend his title against Anatoly Gaffin. And Ntando, the Zulu warrior zombie, receives the challenge of the fearsome Muhammad Salohidinov. EFC 126 is live this Thursday from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
21 minutes after 8. In response to recent violent bullying incidents at some of the country's schools, education experts and unions are calling for a unified, simple and enforceable school code of conduct to help foster a culture of respect and safety. Basil Manuel, for example, of NAPTOSA, believes that consistent messaging around acceptable behavior, starting with a concise code, can be the first step towards ending the growing scourge of school-based violence. Basil Manuel from the National Professional Teachers Organization, NAPTOSA, joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. We've seen some truly shocking and disturbing incidents, the latest, of course, being around the Thulasizwe Secondary School in Gauteng, as well as the David Mama Senior Secondary School out in the Eastern Cape. The incident happening while this girl was aboard a school bus. What do this reveal about, one, the ability to respond in terms of the codes that are in place at various schools across the country?
Thulasizwe, good morning and thanks for having me. At first, I think it's a clear indication that what we are doing now is not having enough of an effect. I'm not suggesting that some of it isn't working. I'm saying there are large numbers for whom this means nothing. If youngsters still unprovoked would slap a girl or slap a boy, it doesn't matter. It says they haven't received the message. And so the question is, what should we be doing differently? Because we can't do the same thing all the time and expect things to change. Because learners are different, they receive things differently, and we've got to also look at context all the time. But I believe in my heart of hearts that the simpler we do things, the better. Because you cannot have a code of conduct that the teachers can't remember, let alone the learners.
Yeah.
So the simpler you are, the better. They must know these are the things that are intolerable, that you never tolerate. And they need to know why. Because we keep saying don't, but we sometimes don't take the time to say why you shouldn't.
Yeah. So what's the prevailing situation now as far as codes of conduct are concerned? Are they disparate at a local level, and is it your experience that in the main they are complicated?
Thulasizwe, every single school does its own code of conduct. There is a pro forma that is sent out.
Yeah.
But then some schools see it as a document that they must tie every legal knot, etc., where the code of conduct goes into 15, 16 pages. Now, I can guarantee you that there is no teacher, not even the head teacher, would know that code of conduct off by heart. How then do we expect a grade 1 or a grade 2 or a grade 5 child to do that? There are a few simple rules that dictate behavior. And we know what they are. We've done them all the time. Why don't we stick to those? Yes, there are other things that you may want to talk about. But basically, it's about respect. It's about respecting property. It's about respecting time. And you can go on just on the word respect. You can virtually get everything into your code of conduct. And my appeal to people is, let's look at it again. Because if we get everybody singing from the proverbial same hymn book, it has to have a better impact.
then, of course, nobody can deny knowing.
Yeah.
And parents would know this too because they would remember it from their schooling.
It sounds like a values conversation, Basil, isn't it? And I've been wondering what's the extent to which values are taught and instilled and drilled into the minds of children at school.
The beauty about values is that it doesn't matter what background you're from, what religion you belong to, everybody embraces it. And I don't think we are highlighting them enough. You're hitting the nail on the head. When we talk about values, everybody identifies what is something that they can stand for or stand against. And this is part of the simplicity of a simple code of conduct. It must be values driven because we've got to instill in people that it is wrong to simply just steal. Our adults think it's fine to steal if you are not caught. If you're caught, it's bad. Look around you.
Yeah.
How can that possibly be one of the things that we aspire to?
Yeah. Lastly, please talk to the social context, though, because there's this reading that says there's a normalization of violence, and perhaps children observe this behavior outside of the schooling context. That there's generally a pervasive sense of violence in our society, and we keep saying it must be an all of society. Where do we begin? How do we start driving that we stop diagnosing what's missing and start acting on it?
Thulasizwe, that is part of the problem. Yes, we know there's a lot of violence around us. And yes, we know children learn by example. But even in the worst circumstances, when you've taught children that is wrong, they will still recognize it as wrong. So we must stop only talking about how bad the context is and also talk about how we can change the context, because that, after all said and done, is what we are calling for. A change to the current context that has become so acceptable and so easily excusable because we can find a ready excuse for it. We've got to change our schools. There are many schools doing great things, but there are many schools where children are sinking because we are not following through.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. Always important to have these conversations. That's Basil Manuel, who is from the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, NAPTOSA.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. So bold talk from Thulasizwe Mabasaya.
Yeah, and he's not just talking the talk. He's showing that he's also got the walk.
Let's see. Early days. Let's see.
Oh, yeah. And Pirates fans, they don't take kindly to empty promises. So let's see. That's what Shekufatu Mabasa is saying. He's saying that Pirates still very much in the hunt for silverware despite recent transitions off the bench. The Buccaneers want to build on momentum and challenge for trophies this season by working on a few areas.
When we are attacking and we lose the ball, how do we try and counter press so that the opponent don't hurt us, because we are vulnerable, we are open because we had the ball. Now teams take advantage of that. They sit back, wait for us to make that mistake, maybe lose the ball sloppily, and then they hit us on the counter, So coach has just been trying to implement strategies for the team throughout the preseason just to try and remove that sense of danger.
Meanwhile, Sekhukhune United head coach Eric Tinkler says he prefers depth over having a large squad that is not sustainable and creates unhealthy environments. Babina Noko have been one of the busiest sides in the transfer market and have so far signed 14 players with Tinkler.
I think we've strengthened the squad. I think we have a little bit more depth in the squad. We're still looking to cut a few because I think the squad is too big. It needs to be cut. But I think the fact that we've done well against GS Galaxy, it gives us the opportunity now leading into the Pirates game, which is a massive game away from home. And it's given me that opportunity to gauge where we are.
Let's go elsewhere. Liverpool striker Darwin Núñez is reportedly closing in on a move to Saudi club Al Hilal, which could allow the Premier League champions to make a fresh bid for Newcastle's Alexander Isak. Núñez joined the Reds in an initial 1.7 billion rand from Benfica 3 years ago, but has failed to live up to the price tag. Tennis action, the Canadian wildcard Victoria Mboko saving a match point on her way through a 1-6, 7-5, 7-6 victory over former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina to reach the final of the WTA Canadian Open. Mboko, playing in just her third 1,000 level, will face the four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka of Japan next. Now, Osaka, she saved 2 set points to topple the number 16 seed Clara Tauson and reach her first WTA 1000 final since 2022. That's a wrap. We'll serve more sport with John Gericke around 12:30. I'm Sai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson will today address the media on allegations that suspended Independent Development Trust Chief Executive Officer Tebogo Malaka attempted to bribe journalist Peter Louis Myburg. Some members of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition have called on government officials to continue tariff talks with their US counterparts. The aim of the talks is to mitigate the impact of the 30% tariff the US imposed on South African imported goods. And pre-trial proceedings in the pig farm murder trial are expected to be finalized in the High Court in Polokwane in Limpopo today. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Extra caution, please, if you're driving through Limpopo province. A big hailstorm has moved through the region this morning. We've been tracking hail on the highway between Mokopane and Polokwane and then north of Polokwane as well. So just drive very carefully. Conditions are not great at the moment. The Weather Service has been warning about rain and hail in northern provinces, and it has arrived in Limpopo this morning. Very heavy on your way to Pretoria. Coming up the N14 N1, there's a crash at Bruckfontein, so delays from the Pretoria West exit. That's the N14 Krugersdorp Highway, and then a broken down truck at Rigel, so another queue getting up through Boerta Avenue today. Taking forever to clear a crash on the N12, Joburg bound coming through Benoni. The crash just after Tom Jones. Traffic still all the way back through Pitfontein area, very heavy there. Durban's M13 coming out of Hillcrest down through Fields Hill, finally moving after some big delays earlier this morning. There is a crash on the M4, the Ruthfirst Highway near the Broadway Durban North exit, queuing both ways, particularly heavy if you're coming in from the Schlanga area, very slow. Kransport Pass on the N11 north of Middelburg has a big truck fire incident. You may find yourself being parked up and waiting to get past that scene today. At Cape Town, on-off nature of the protesting on the R300. The road was closed and then reopened, but closed again. The R300 closed because of protesting from the M7 going through to Stock Road. The exit from Stock Road to the M7 currently open. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again, Ndauling. Let's start with a report about economic transactions in our economy. Tell me what's come out of that. What do we glean into that about the state of the economy in July?
So Banks of Africa has noted that the economy is showing steady signs of recovery. Its economic transactions index rose for the third consecutive month to 139.3 in July. It says this signals that the second quarter uptick in economic activity is extending into the third quarter, albeit with slightly moderated momentum. Now, the Betty, which reflects the real value of electronic transactions in the country, is 1.9% higher than a year ago. Independent economist Elise Kruger attributes the economy's resilience to the adaptability of local firms, stating that management teams in corporate SA have navigated challenging times well. However, she notes that uncertainty around the impact of US tariffs poses a potential downward risk to growth forecasts. Kruger highlighted that several structural factors support the local economy, including low inflation, which eased to 3% in June and is forecast to average around 3.5% for the year. Kruger further highlighted that lower inflation will support the recovery of salary earners' purchasing power, with 2025 expected to be the second consecutive year of real increases in salaries.
And I can't say I'm surprised by this survey that you are going to tell us about now that has found that the likes of Shein and Temu pose a risk to jobs in the fashion industry.
That's right, Sulas. Now, the local clothing industry facing challenges, of course, due to the influx of cheap imports and e-commerce platforms dominating the market. According to a study commissioned by the Localization Support Fund and conducted by research firm BMA, over 8,000 local jobs have been lost in retail and manufacturing, with the potential for this number to quadruple by 2030 if left unchecked. Now, the industry is struggling to compete with international brands, particularly from Asia, the likes of Shein and Temu, as you've mentioned. Government has introduced initiatives to support the industry, including the RCTFL Master Plan, aimed at boosting local manufacturing and employment. However, the industry says more needs to be done to level the playing field and protect local jobs. Some proposed solutions include stricter compliance requirements, improved consumer protection protocols, and stronger digital infrastructure to support local e-commerce. In the meantime, Minister of Small Business Development Stella Ndabeni emphasizes the need to cut down on cheap imports through tariffs, including on e-commerce platforms, and clamp down on fake illicit imports entering the country.
All right. Lastly, what kind of a trading day can we expect today?
Well, today is D-Day, with Trump's reciprocal tariffs taking effect. Despite that, local markets are likely to open in the green following global peers. Investors here at home will be assessing updates from Advitech, SAPI, and TFG. In currency markets, the rand benefiting from a soft dollar. It's at 17.73 to the greenback. Not much changes in the oil scene, with Brent remaining steady just above $66 per barrel. Then looking at Wall Street, futures are in positive territory, with investors digesting corporate earnings. Over 90% of companies that have reported have beat expectations, further showing, that corporate America remains resilient even with all this uncertainty. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks on track to close in the green as concerns about chip and pharma tariffs subside.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauling Lichela. She's kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets over the course of the show this morning.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
File this under Unsolved, the mystery of the mayoral chain. Gauteng police have confirmed that the case of the missing Sedibeng District Municipality mayoral chain, valued at 465,000 rand, has officially been closed. Despite nearly a year of investigation, the ceremonial chain has not been recovered, no arrests have been made, and the National Prosecuting Authority has declined to prosecute. The lack of resolution has sparked some criticism and concerns about accountability and transparency in that district municipality. King Sol Chabalala of the DA, a DA member of the provincial legislature, joins me now and is at the forefront of that criticism. Good morning to you, King Sol, and thank you for your time. Why is it a problem for you as a party that this case is being closed without the chain being recovered, no suspects arrested, and indeed the NPA saying that, who do you want us to prosecute? We simply can't prosecute.
Okay, good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to your listeners. I think our issue with the missing mayoral chain, if you trace events leading to the loss of that chain, it is quite clear as to who is responsible for the missing chain. Once the chain was reported missing, apparently 6 months after it was lost, and when after the council sitting, the last time the mayor had a chain, the security team wanted to take the chain and place it in a vault, but the district mayor refused to hand over the chain. and indicated that she will keep the chain in her office. And also, if you check, there was never a burglary that was reported. And also to access the mayor's office, you can only access the mayor's office through the biometric system. And also, there are cameras around the mayor's office. So this boggles the mind as to why the SAPS has chosen not to, or the NP has chosen not to prosecute. Because if one is able to draw a reasonable inference, it is clear to see who is responsible for the loss of that chain.
Excuse the pun, but do you suspect that there was a quote-unquote chain gang that may have been involved here?
Yes, I think one can deduce from the fact that the mayor refused to hand over the chain for safekeeping in the vault. I think the police, based on that, should have investigated as to why the mayor refused to hand over the chain, as it is the norm after the council sitting, that the chain has to be handed to the security team. The chain has to be put in a safe. And also, what they're saying is that the mayor just put the chain in the drawer in her office. I mean, that amounts to negligence. Also, is an indictment to our premier in the province, the provincial government. They are supposed to have taken this mayor to task to say, how is it that you can lose such a valuable municipal asset?
In fact, Kingston, in fact, you take me to the next point. Someone listening might say, yes, it was valuable. 465,000 rand in terms of its value is not chump change. But in the bigger scheme of things, with problems in municipalities that fall under the Sidibeng district municipality that have to do with service delivery, this chain was not going to change that situation. Why is this a matter that is of importance for you, such that you believe that even the provincial government, it's an indictment on them, the premier, it's an indictment on him?
If you check, 500,000, because the chain is valued at almost 500,000. This is not a small change. This is municipal assets, is taxpayers' assets. And remember, this is not only the issue of the chain. There are a number of events that happened around the district mayor of the district that show that the mayor is irresponsible. Also, if you take into consideration that the car that was assigned to her, that she was refusing to use, ultimately when she used it, sugar granules were found in the oil system of the car. After it was deliberately, the sugar contents were found in the oil system of the car. I mean, hence I'm saying the provincial government should have intervened. The mayor should have account as to why was she refusing to hand over the chain and what happened to the mayoral chain.
And you make the point that it's an asset of the municipality. What do we know about asset management in that municipality and accountability for failure to manage assets properly? What do we glean, for instance, in terms of previous reports of the Auditor General?
Yes, but also as I indicated, I mean, it shows lack of proper management on the assets of the municipality. As I also indicated that even the car that was used by the mayor, funny enough, sugar contents were found in the oil system of the car. I mean, it shows that they are not taking care of the assets of the municipality. Also, he indicated that in the site we are experiencing a non-delivery of service. I mean, while people might think the issue of the chain might be a tip of an iceberg, but if we don't take a stand now to say any wrongdoing, no matter how small it is, there should be consequences.
So the SAPS is happy to leave it here. The NPA, to be honest, I don't blame them if there's no suspect that has been brought to them. Who were they expected to prosecute? Are you willing to let it go, or will you be following through on this to ensure that actually this matter is taken to its logical conclusion?
No, we are not willing to let this matter go because they say at the moment we start turning a blind eye to any wrongdoing, that's where people become blatant and daring. So we are going to ensure that we pursue this matter. I mean, the last person to have the chain and refuse to hand it is the mayor. The mayor should have been the first suspect. She needs to account as to what happened to the chain. Also, we've written to the Premier of the province to say what are the circumstances surrounding the dropping of this matter, whether the SAPS has indicated to say what are the reasons of them dropping this case. I mean, even I think the NPA, if you bring to them a case that does not have a solid evidence, I think sometimes they would be tempted to drop the case. But I think the SAPS has dropped the ball on this matter. The investigating officer did not do a thorough investigation.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That's King Saul Chabalala, DA member of the provincial legislature. And I suppose the upshot of that conversation is that if you stop thinking about it as a ceremonial chain and saying, what purpose does it serve? And you think of it as an asset of the municipality. In circumstances where you've heard of instances where other assets of greater importance in terms of delivery of services, yellow plant they call it, is an example, where you read in the Auditor General's report that it just simply disappeared. How does a ganda just disappear? Like 1 minute it's there, it's huge, it's massive. A TLB, it's there. Next minute it's not there. I suppose that's the point that is being made about this particular asset, that is the mayoral chain of Sedibeng. But as one caller was saying earlier on, even the Mole one is unaccounted for 10 years later. So it seems these things do happen.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
All right, let me take one or two of your voice notes. People reflecting on the comments of the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula with regard to any threat of sanctions on ANC leaders to try and get them to change course on domestic policies such as BBBEE.
Thulas, my brother, give Webster here, man. I know these people who are lambasting the SG for saying what he was saying at the press conference. I fully support the SG. We can't be like slave of 1918 something. We have to think for ourselves. So if the Americans want to hold South Africa ransom with this tariff of them or sanction of them, we must take a stand. So those who are saying Mbalula is wrong, we can't beg. We can't be a beggar. Even Sankara warn us about this aid. It's another form of slavery. So Africa must stand alone.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. After 30 years, the ANC need to change their strategy as far as foreign affairs and all that. Why don't they just stay neutral and use both the West and the East to the benefit of the South African people? We've had nothing but looting, fraud, corruption, nepotism, you name it. It's all happened. We've seen the infrastructure, which was brilliant before 94, has just fallen down. Everything is in ruins. So it's time that they changed. This is Mike from Hillcrest in KZN.
Thulas, good morning, Brad Marisburg. Just to make a comment on Fikile Mbalula. So what he's missing is it's not about the policy. The policies haven't worked. The criticism is coming from the country, from all spheres, about the policy not working and no economic growth, which is lying directly at the door of the ANC. Will he admit that? Not a chance. But he'll bring it back to race. Yes, it is race-based politics, but it's not the reason people don't want it around. If the economy was growing at 10%, believe me, everybody would love BEE. White, black, coloured, Indian wouldn't make a difference. Brad Marisburg.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. To watch the hail It's currently moving through the Limpopo province. We've seen multiple collision scenes on the wet and slippery N1 between Mokopane and Polokwane, and just looking at some crashes north of Polokwane as well in the hail. Please drive very safely, very carefully through those conditions. Now we've got a truck fire incident on the N11 at Kransport Pass. This is north of Middelburg up towards the Loskop Dam. The N11 should be avoided. It is currently just standing still at this stage with a little movement, particularly on the northbound side this morning. We'll keep an eye on that one, but I'd avoid the N11 at this stage. On your way to Pretoria, earlier crash on the N14 Krugersdorp Highway has been cleared. That's good news. Still big delays out of Ekurhuleni towards Joburg. Crash taking forever to sort out on the N12 just past Tom Jones, between Tom Jones and Atlas. Traffic's all the way back through to Pitfontein and looking heavy across all lanes. Also crash on the N3 at the cement factory driving southbound. Durban, if you're driving in from Umhlanga this morning, an earlier crash on the Ruth First Highway just by the Broadway Durban North exit. That's still quite a big backlog. You might want to try Umhlanga Rocks Drive as a quicker way into Durban this morning. The M13, Hillcrest through to Pinetown via Fields Hill. That is all eased after quite a busy morning earlier. And Cape Town's R300 has been reopened. It was closed because of protesting, then reopened, then closed again. At this stage, you can turn off the M7 and go into Mitchell's Plain. You can turn off the N2 and travel down towards AZ Berman. So both ways on the R300 open, but there may be a volatile situation just to keep your eyes on. Also, if you're driving out of Cape Town, a crash on the M1 at Brackenfell Boulevard. That's quite heavy from Belleville side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Zinzi, the Gen Z. Word on the street is you sold your car.
Yes, and I needed a glow up. Hashtag no hustle, no hassle.
So wait. The influencer got influenced by We Buy Cars.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And they came to me. They checked the car, they gave me an offer. Oh, and they paid me immediately. Easier than an Insta Live, without the weird DMs at 2 a.m.
I didn't understand half of the things you just said, but hey, We Buy Cars. Geared for the glow up, geared for you.
This July, journey beyond the horizon with Chasing the Sun. 5 mesmerizing episodes every Sunday at 7:30 on SABC2 from 13 July to 10 August. Feel the thrill of the adventure, the power of discovery, and stories that light up the skies. Missed an episode? No worries. Stream anytime, anywhere on SABC Plus. No subscription required. Chasing the Sun. Your Sunday nights just got brighter. Tune in to SABC2, Sundays at 7:30 or watch on SABC Plus on demand.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me go straight to the calls. Let me start with Mike in Newlands. Good morning to you, Mike.
Yeah, good morning, Thulasizwe. I've just got back from Japan. I was trying to meeting with people from Korea, China, Singapore, and so on, all discussing the upcoming tariffs. But I found myself in a tricky situation being a South African because I wonder now if I haven't committed treason. You know, the South Africa came up a lot, and of course I had to admit we've got massive corruption. Our president's corrupt. Our vice president seems to be corrupt with this multi-million rand premises. Of course, we admit the ANC admits itself that it is corrupt with its small and yellow skeletons, which makes a difficult conversation when you're trying to sell your country. They also asked me about BE and EWC and how does that work? Can they come and invest here? And it was extremely difficult to tell. Two of the gentlemen I was talking with clearly would not be seen as white people here in South Africa, and I don't think they'd be allowed to trade here. And I tried to explain the color of your skin in South Africa, unfortunately, is very important. And they asked me a very interesting question, which I really floored me. They said, but where's Elon Musk? He's a South African. That guy is fantastic. By the way, the whole of overseas loves Elon Musk. It's just South Africa seems to hate him.
The whole of... Wait, Mike. You're saying the whole of overseas loves Elon Musk?
Yes.
Is that why
they love it.
Is that why Teslas were going up in flames in many parts of the world in the last few months? Is that why Tesla sales went down significantly in Europe, and there was pushback in centers like Europe?
I can answer that question at the end of this. I just want to explain something to you. I'm talking about general business people here that admire the fact that this one man guy created what he's created. And the point I try to make is that he's not welcome in South Africa because he's white. And they said they don't understand. I said, no, if he was black, he could come here and we could have Starlink. It would cost nothing. But because he's white, he has to pay 30% of his company. Now, I'm just wondering, does the ANC want me to lie, to be a patriotic South African, as our president is asking yesterday, and Paul Mashatile is saying the other day as well. I can't lie, and none of us can lie. And
Yeah, I've got to move on, Mike. But I do need to ask you.
We are in trouble.
I do need to ask you before you go, Mike. In that conversation about what doesn't work in the country, did you tell them about the things that actually do work in the country so that it's balanced? Because I don't think anyone is asking you to lie, but we are asking you to be balanced. Does our democracy not work?
No, it's not working. Our unemployment's about to hit 60% amongst the youth. We've got the highest poverty in the world and the highest crime. How's that working?
So nothing works in this country.
Nothing works.
All right.
You need to go overseas, go to Japan, and you'll see how things work.
Gotcha. Mike, thank you. That's Mike in Newlands. Hassan in Joburg, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about the issue of skills, yeah?
Yeah, but I mean, my blood boils when I hear such organized ignorance, because Mike is not innocent when he talks these things. He has an agenda. But listen, I was going to tell you earlier, and I wanted to remind you, because you were in quite a jovial mood talking about the chain gang, and that I was going to remind you about a worker who reads history by Bertolt Brecht, that it's not just the one profession that we need, or the king.
Yes.
Brecht in his poem basically says, young Alexander conquered India, he alone, and then he goes on to say each page a victory, and he asks so many questions, so many particulars, so many questions. So when this guy, for example, talks about Musk having done this, Musk has got people working for him, engineers and others, not him, right?
Yeah.
And also he ignores the impacts of it. But the thing that takes me up, when you look at the skills shortages or needs, ICT skills come up on top, and you'll know how it's interrelated to make sure that hospitals work properly. There's planning. Our mothers and others don't have to go 5 o'clock in the morning to the queues. So there are related skills that I think you need to try and focus on that government is not funding.
Yeah.
But to come back to this issue of historically about black people and that, I work in the mining, with mining affected communities. They do not get any reward for the activism that they do. The CETAs do not come to the party, but the bill that is currently before you has taken out historically discriminated communities, right? Just so the people who suffer living next to mine dumps have to continue, because now we are equal. There must be redress based on historical oppressions and exploitations.
And I think that's what we agreed on. That's our compact, is it not, Hassan? That the injustices that we all acknowledged were the bedrock and foundation of our society have to be redressed. Right. That's always been our compact.
And now, because Trump says so or Musk says something else, now we've got to change. No, we've got to maintain what we want. Otherwise, there'll be too few people rich and many poor, and this will be unsustainable.
All right. Thank you for that, Hassan and Joburg. They're raising a number of issues. Let me read a message from Vugani Ngobo out in eThekwini, who says, morning to us. AfriForum, Solidarity, Freedom Front Plus, Democratic Alliance are all responsible for these tariffs which are coming from the United States. This is coming from two main things, according to Vugani Ngobo. One, they are against economic transformation. That is, the economy is in their hands, says Vugani. And then secondly, the stand on Israel versus Palestine. And that message is from Vugani Ngobo, as I say, in eThekwini. Let me take one or two voice notes before we wrap up the show.
Hi, good morning, Thulas Mafuta. Thulas, I think there's only one reason, and one reason only, that why these countries have been given severe tariffs by the U.S. government is because of their alignment with the China or the Chinese government. Look for a country like Lesotho or Venezuela, or a lot of other countries in South America that received severe tariffs because of their a relationship to the Chinese government and to China. That's all, Thulas.
Hi, Thulas. The ANC cannot come with an excuse after they failed to send an ambassador to the U.S. where they will negotiate about the tariffs. And then the ANC cannot blame the DA. We are members of the DA, we like DA, and the DA is not involved in corruption. Some of the people who are who are sanctioned are ANC officials who are corrupt. So leave the DA free, because we are the DA members who like it. My name is Les.
All right, Les, thank you for that. I don't have time to engage, but thank you for all of your engagement throughout the morning. Thank you for listening. That's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM with Ketli Mutlatlana. That's coming up after the news. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, Macpherson to address bribery allegations against suspended IDT CEO, and US tariffs on South African imported goods to take effect. Good morning. Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean Macpherson will today address the media allegations that suspended Independent Development Trust Chief Executive Officer Tebogo Malaka attempted to bribe journalist Peter Louis Myburg. The incident allegedly took place days after Malaka's suspension, which followed a PricewaterhouseCoopers investigation. The investigation revealed irregularities connected to IDT's 836 million rand oxygen plant scandal. Meanwhile, the Black Business Council says the law must take its course. Hanki Matabane is the council's CEO.
We've got a principled stand against corruption, and it does not matter who commits corruption. The law must deal with those people very harshly. Corruption eats into the resources that are supposed to deliver services in the country. The IDT's role is very, very critical. And so if there is money disappearing from such institutions, it creates a problem in the country. So whoever gets involved in corruption have to be dealt with harshly.
The South African National Editors Forum, SENEF, has warned journalists against finding themselves on the wrong side of the law. The forum's Hopewell Khadebe says journalists should not compromise their ethics.
They were to be found to have left their homes and went to do a story, and they accept the bribe. They will be prosecuted and they will face the wrath of the law, and there is no organization that will protect them, because we are all supposed to respect the law. So they should always keep the integrity, always keep their journalism ethics, and remember that they are expected to be more ethical in their duty than in